Here we go.
I should have stayed home and played with myself.
What do you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess, screw.
Well, let's play chess.
The Indianapolis Colts select Anthony Richardson, quarterback, Florida.
Richardson going to take off and run. He's in there! Touchdown! I-N-D-Y! The first career touchdown!
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it! Hits it!
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Friday, everybody. Thank you for joining us in studio. I am going to be on the road. I just learned that today, coming up next week, and it's something that we can all take part in, and it is something in which you can win stuff on the road coming up next week. I'll tell you about that a little bit later on. We got a busy show for you, too. I want to give a lot of respect to boys high school basketball sectional semifinals throughout the state of Indiana later on tonight. Of course, Bob Lovell, brought to you by your 14 Central Indiana. CarX locations run by Joe Childers, and Bob joins us coming up at the bottom of the hour. We will get into that and then what might be coming up tomorrow night. I think Noblesville tonight. If you're headed there, you better already have your tickets, because I believe that it's sold out tonight, if I had the information accurately right there. But it is going to be a fantastic night of high school basketball. We shall discuss that. Pacers on the road. That's the second of a home and home. It is in New Orleans coming up later on tonight at 8 o'clock. 7:30, your coverage begins right here on The Fan. We will talk about that as well. That matchup, round number 2 with round 1 on Wednesday, going to the Pacers. And what I told you yesterday, I thought was as professional of a win as you're going to find. And it's weird because it's sandwiched. You have, to me, the most impressive win of the season on Sunday, one of the more disappointing losses of the season on Monday, which there are more than a handful of. And then on Wednesday, I thought it was a very professional win, just all the way through. We'll see how they look against the Pelicans on the road coming up tonight. Again, that tip time is at 8 o'clock. A lot of basketball to get to. Boilermakers back at it coming up tomorrow night at home versus Michigan State. Got Indiana State, as I mentioned yesterday, Indiana State on Sunday versus Murray State. Got IU on the road at Maryland. Voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, is going to join us coming up in the 5 o'clock hour to discuss that. I will say this. To me, it's not a big deal, other than I wish. Like, you know who I want in this draft? And I've been pretty clear. I think rebooting another Marvin Harrison Jr. would be outstanding. And if you listen to Mike Chappell and I have this discussion yesterday, I realize the way that it stands right now, there's not a chance in hell they can get that done. Because then we start talking about cost. And for whatever reason, you save, and then the first time anybody brings up cost, everybody runs away from it. Like it's a box of crackers at Kroger. Well, wait a minute, $4.29, I got to get the hell out of Dodge. I've saved, but I got to get out of here. So you know where I stand right there. You know where I stand at the position with the Colts, and you know where certainly I stand with how I feel about Marvin Harrison Jr. See, this is what happens during the combine. This is what happens once you get towards the draft. We'll have a lot more of this. To me, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best, and I would take that tomorrow. But now you're going to start getting other names that are going to start overriding it. Hey, you know what? This guy's a little bit better. And, of course, around here we end up talking about the value, the depth of a draft at a position, and what Chris Ballard can get, and then also get another very important draft pick. And I think we're to a point now going into year number 8 where that makes us all just a little bit nauseous to hear. And we really don't want to hear it. So to me, if you were able to ever go for it, it'd be great. I'd love to see him go for it. You can make the argument that they've gone for it at the quarterback position a number of times, and with a healthy swing and a miss, like a Rob Deere swing and a miss. Just whiff. And I loved Rob Deere. You can certainly make that accurate argument. But this is what I love about today at the Combine. And we talked to Mike Chappell about it yesterday, and we were kind of in jest. He had mentioned that he had to get up really early and be downtown at 8:30, and Marvin Harrison Jr. met with the media then. Well, Marvin Harrison Jr. wasn't there. Marvin Harrison Jr. wasn't there, at least as of the last hour I saw this with Pro Football Talk, that he wasn't there. I think Chris Carter had that he was going through medicals, told everybody to relax. And then others, obviously, as writers and people that do what I do for the most part, you kind of got to crap your pants on a lot of things. I don't know if I ever go to the level of crapping my pants. Maybe I complain about so much stuff to where I don't even notice the crapping any longer. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's me. But I don't think I sit here every single day and, like a lot of people say, your sky is falling. Nah, listen, I don't want it to fall. And I want to put the situations around here sports-wise in the best possible position because I live in it. You live in it. And it does affect, as a sports fan, with that favorite team, with that school, with that professional team here, with your hometown squad, a lot of your attitude and personality rides with it. It just is the way that it is. I mean, maybe to some that it's weird, but I mean, hell, it shouldn't be weird to those that may not like sports. You do the same thing with news and politics. I mean, it ruins your day. I mean, hell, I just told you how much a box of crackers were. That'll ruin your day. So we've had our days ruined most often around here, and I think sometimes when you have to be critical of a situation here or there, then the attitude or the perceived attitude that you believe that I have kind of gets swept up in that. Like, there's nobody that wants you to be more happy than me. And I've said this all along. We get better numbers, right? You listen more frequently and longer when you hear good things about your team. This is not Philadelphia. You're not all ready to pull down your pants and crap all over everything. It's not Boston. Oh, we got to crap on this. Not New York. Got to crap on something. Around here, it's okay to spit the truth, but at some point in time when there is just overwhelming criticism, you guys, at least for the 19 years I've been doing this, at some point you guys will check out. And I don't want you checking out. Nobody around here wants you checking out, so I like to mix in the good. I will dig for the good. But mostly what you get as a result is what you watch. That's how you perceive it. That's how you define it as good or not, a win or a loss. And there has been a lot of losing around here on nearly every level. Face it, we need a terrific story. So if I'm constantly chasing that terrific story, I will tell you that right now, the way that it stands, you have number 15, and you got to get all the way up to, inside 8 is what they're saying? Well, inside 8, I would think. I would say first wide receiver off the board. But I just think that he would be perfect for this team. I mean, hell, he'd be perfect anywhere playing that position. What the hell am I talking about? Perfect anywhere. He runs down the field. He catches everything you throw to him. He is a legacy that, think about what he is going to have to accomplish to be better than his dad. Think about how incredibly high that bar is. But I believe he's as legit. Like last year, people will look at the school and say, well, it's Ohio State, and oftentimes things are overblown. Remember how many people last year blew me blank about that and C.J. Stroud? Well, no quarterback out of Ohio State's ever any good. They're always overrated. And, yeah, I didn't hear about that anymore, right? Because the Crow Eaters didn't say anything about it. And nothing said. They kind of went away. Poof, and went away. Oh, weird. Okay, so he is really good. But I had a great deal of belief in him last year, and I have a great deal of belief in Marvin Harrison Jr. I can sit here and tell you if he missed a meeting with the media, I don't care. I don't care. Now, I'm not suggesting, I know these guys are on a timeline. They're on much different timelines. I respect what everybody does. I'm not a jackass about it. Because I don't expect, you know me, I'm not going to be a jackass about somebody else unless they're a jackass about me. So, I'll qualify it by saying I'm sure their time is precious. My time sometimes is precious. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes I'm just jacking around watching Emergency, right? Sometimes I'm just messing around. I'm just filling some spots. But I know that you have a difference in what we do in covering sports as what time is precious and sensitive and what isn't. So you go down there and you want to get the gist for your next story, and then he doesn't show up. And then you have everybody losing their mind. And then you start getting this, and it's funny. I hope this happens. I don't think there's a chance in hell that it happens. It's like everybody going overboard that there's no way you can draft this guy. He's got to go outside the top 8 now because he can't be trusted. That's problematic. Look how he's handling the combine altogether. The same has been said about Caleb Williams. I don't care about this. I don't care. It's not because it's the combine and I sat down there on Wednesday with my thumb up my rear. I don't care about this. I care about how this player or that player equates to the team that we follow that drafts him. And I can tell you this right now, if all these teams want to go ahead and dump on him or red flag him and let him move down the draft board because of that, you guys are all stinking crazy. And let me tell you this, if there is any group or individuals that in a room believe that they're the smartest ever invented and in a room think that they can outthink everybody else, and by the way, everybody else thinks the same thing about them as they do about everybody else, it's NFL executives. They all think with whatever doing, they're inventing the wheel or reinventing the wheel, inventing their own wheel. That's just the way that it is. I think that is kind of like a prerequisite to get that job. All right, do you think you're the smartest person in the room, in whatever room you walk into? Well, okay, then. That's like question number 1 on our Q&A session. Yeah, some of these guys, and all these guys to get there, have an incredible amount of football knowledge. But what I'm trying to say is sometimes it doesn't take that. Sometimes you and I can see it. Sometimes all you have to do watch on Saturday and just see how one guy is different than others. If you remember, that's exactly what I said about C.J. Stroud. I watched C.J. Stroud play against Georgia, and I thought, yeah, that's it right there. That's going to work. I couldn't believe Carolina decided to go a different direction. And sometimes it doesn't take breaking down every single number, analytically speaking, and have 5 guys on your staff that went to MIT to help you break it down or to feed you that information. Yeah, sometimes it's easy. And you know what? I would rather it be easy. And you don't want to put in all that analytics work, do you, on trying to figure out just how minuscule the number is between one wide receiver and the other? Go with the guy that you like. So in all of this, to me, nothing should ever change. However, I will sit here and tell you I hope that it does. I hope that it does. I hope that prior to the draft, and again, it won't. And what have I told you? This time of year, we talk about a lot of things. 95% of it, we end up wasting our time and wasting our breath. It is the nature of this time of year. But if there was one thing that happened, and one thing that occurred that would cause a slide that would make my interest, or in this case, what would you call me? My love fest, I guess, is what you guys say. Make my love fest a little bit more reality-based, I'd be all for it. It would be the dumbest thing of all time. Well, he didn't show up. I saw somebody from The Athletic, a couple of other people. Well, this is clearly a red flag, and if I'm a general manager, I wouldn't take him in the top 8. If you need a wide receiver and you don't take – actually, if you're a team and you don't take him in the top 8, you are nuts. And not the good nuts. You are nuts. Really, idiocy. Idiot. There's no way. And all you have to do is watch. That's what's going to matter. Now, to prove out the point, there are some of these guys that have the leverage right now where they can do this and it won't affect them. And most people would suggest that Marvin Harrison has that. Caleb Williams has that. I heard Mike Tannenbaum on a little bit earlier with Jake and Jimmy, and he said, you know what, you still like that guy that goes the extra mile and is willing to, do the 40 or give you his 40 time in the Walmart parking lot or whatever. Yeah, I don't need that. I just want to see with what I am getting is what I see on Saturdays in the past. That's what. So to me, this doesn't matter. Now, I hope that it does. I hope that it does. And believe me, it is a much greater existence to be like me and to know whatever room you walk into, you're likely, if not the dumbest, you're right there at the top of the dumb list. That's okay. That's okay. I have never set the bar unreasonably high. But I think we're all kind of pretty good to watching somebody play. And in terms of can't miss, feeling that, this guy and that guy is can't miss. And to me, Marvin Harrison Jr. is just that and then some. Like nothing screams. It's just we're in a spot today where everybody wants to scream and yell and poke holes in everything that is good. Because we live in a world that is mostly negative and bad. I just refuse to do that with some, and that is one. It is going to have to be a hell of a lot more, in this case, egregiously worse for me to go, oh, I don't know about this. That's an absolute slam dunk. All right, 239-1070. You think Jake Query's listening right now?
Maybe.
Corbin's over there. Call Jake. You got his number?
Yeah, I've got Jake.
Call Jake. I want to put him on the hotline really quick before we get to Bob Lovell because we did have a little bit of IndyCar news here. I don't know how much it's going to affect you. It's more of an old schooler thing right now. And like I get people on both sides saying, well, I can't believe they're doing this. And, on the other side, yeah, it's okay. I understand. But the IndyCar Series bosses, this is from Autosport a couple of hours ago. They are looking to finalize a charter system before this year's Indy 500. And the move, and this is according to an X message on that platform from Autosport, the move could guarantee entries into the blue ribbon and break tradition of only the fastest 33 qualifiers making the cut. So, upon that news, there's always kind of a line drawn in the sand a little bit here. Like all the old schoolers just kind of freak out. And then the new schoolers try to tell you how it's going to be okay. Honestly, it's probably somewhere in the middle if that comes to fruition. But these are the types of days. I miss him every day. Every day. I miss going to work him as friend. I miss talking about, and I'm not the biggest betting guy out there. But among those that talked about betting, R. Miller was the most interesting. Talking about basketball, talking about his relationships. I saw Billy Shepard at Cambridge Fieldhouse back on Wednesday night. It was great to see him. R always got all of us together, a workingman's friend, for a handful of lunches over the course of the year. But I think about R all the time, and then I really think about Robin Miller on a day like today, and you truly do miss his presence and his thought. And this is one thing. So I'm thinking, all right, we miss R, and I'd love to have R's thoughts. But, hell, Jake was just on the air. Jake works for the IMS radio network. Jake could do that, right? Jake can come on here. So, yeah, get Jake on here before I have to go. It's really a couple of minutes here before I have to go to Bob Lovell. We'll get to that coming up in a couple of minutes. But I did want to get a little bit more insight on that, some of you IndyCar folks out there. Since, we're back into racing with NASCAR, just about back into with IndyCar. And once you get past March, it's a downhill slide to the month of May and the greatest spectacle in racing. That's one thing that we hadn't really gotten too much into is the trademark greatest spectacle in racing usage by F1. We haven't got into that, but I did want to get into this a little bit more with Jay Query, and we can coming up in just a bit. Dave reminds me of, oops, looks like you blink. Crackers are now $4.49 at Kroger. $4.49. Now, those are the Keebler brand names, right? See, I like my cracker of choice. My cracker of choice is the pita triangle with sea salt, and it's Keebler, and I swear $4.49 is what it is, Dave. Yeah. $4.49. It was like $2.79. That's when I blinked. Dave sharing the bad news. I tell you what, we'll get Jake on a little bit later. You don't have to do that right now, Corbin. We'll do that because we're kind of stacked up. I want to get Bob Lovell on coming up on the other side as well. Mike Wells of ESPN Radio. We'll talk Pacers and Pelicans round number 2. That's with Mike coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. And we've got Don Fischer, voice of the Hoosiers, IU and Maryland. I thought that was from start to finish, and you can make an argument maybe that was Kansas in a game that they lost back in December. But from start to finish, that was as hard, as focused I'd seen an IU basketball team play this season. Going back to Tuesday night and that win at home over Wisconsin. We'll see if they can continue that against Maryland this weekend. Don Fischer, voice of the Hoosiers, coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. All right, 239-1070. Email address, jmv1075thefan.com. I am looking at you inside the AAA membership lounge via YouTube Live. Jump in there. By the way, AAA is always awesome for whatever you need. Any time of year, any season, the AAA membership lounge via YouTube Live. Jump in there, respond, jump in there, watch, listen, just be a part of the AAA membership lounge. The stream, the app, HD radio, and on a Friday, getting into it. And Bob Lovell's set to join us coming up next. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
Texting enrolls you into reoccurring automated
Corbin's over there. I'm John. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, let me know when Bob is good to go right there. Bob Lovell, Indiana Sports Talk, brought to you by your 14 Central Indiana CarX locations. CarX.com. Busy night tonight. Busy night tomorrow night for Bob. We'll talk to Bob hopefully coming up in a couple of minutes. If not, we can move on. Just give me the thumbs up or the thumbs down for Bob. Either way. All right, thumbs down. Tell Bob to wait a little bit because Jake Query of Query & Company is in studio right now. Hit his mic over there, Corbin. I had a lot of people ask about what is about to happen, for example, with the 500 and having seats that are solidified in this case that don't like it. And I immediately thought of Robin Miller and missing Robin Miller as much as we do. The type of impact his voice would have on a day like today, learning that. Are we going to end up seeing that and seeing that this year?
I think there's a lot of discussion about it. For those that are unfamiliar with what we're talking about, John, when Tony George founded the Indy Racing League, he famously said in the beginning that in order to run the Indianapolis 500, you needed to be a member of the Indy Racing League. And that, of course, went against the tradition that his grandfather Tony Holman had founded, which was if you are one of the 33 fastest cars, you are going to make the Indianapolis 500-mile race, regardless of entry, size, whatever. There were obviously some rules of specification limited, but yeah, you get my drift. So there was so much blowback by that, largely Robin Miller, a part of that, that then they revised it to 25 and 8, that 25 spots would be reserved for the Indy Racing League, 8 for outside of it. The 25-8 rule was very controversial. So now here we are years later with the IndyCar Series and the discussion that they would come up with a system that if you are a full-time car in the series, that you would be insured a starting spot in each race, including the Indy 500, which would go against the tradition of bumping and 33 fastest. My presumption, I don't know this, but my thought would be that as IndyCar now is trying to actively pursue additional engine manufacturers, that it's entirely possible that there are engine manufacturers that are saying, look, the challenge with getting into the IndyCar Series would be we don't want to be like Lotus was when they came to Indy a few years ago and be so off pace that it's counterproductive. So I could see them saying in trying to entice new engine manufacturers, no. If you come to the IndyCar Series, you will be assured a starting spot in all races, including the Indy 500. From a traditional standpoint, John, it's not ideal. From a practicality standpoint in 2024 and a car number count, I don't know about necessary, but I think it's probably trends toward enticement for expansion of the sport itself.
And going more than 33, right? Will you go more than 33 or will you keep that tradition?
If you got more than 33 in, then I think you would go over, but I don't know that you would. At this point, that would be like the next step of it, right? The next thing that would have to be answered. But I think as of right now, you probably would be looking at like 28 or 29 that are guaranteed in this system, right? And then, beyond that, it would be 33 fastest probably. That would be the next question to have to be answered, and I don't know that part has been discussed on the table just yet. That certainly, if you went more than 33, there is, as we have seen in other races, there probably is from a safety standpoint a limit on the number of cars that you could have on track at the same time.
What are the other engine manufacturers' possibilities?
That's a good question. There has been discussion in the past of Toyota returning. Toyota has been in the series before. A few years ago, Volkswagen was certainly mentioned. And then obviously right now you have Chevrolet and Honda. And, one of the big challenges is probably the wrong word. I probably misspoke there. One of the priorities right now is retaining those two. And certainly Honda is one of them. There's been rumor, I don't know how legitimate, but there's been rumor that Honda might be looking to go elsewhere or into sports cars. A big part of the balancing act here is the fact that sports cars and IMSA has become very popular, which have a number of different engine manufacturers within it, and there's probably that juggling act of trying to entice some of those to come maybe not away from IMSA, but in addition to IMSA into IndyCar, and then also battling with hoping that those that are in IndyCar are not then wanting to put all their eggs into like an IMSA basket. So there's that balancing act and fluctuation that takes place.
All right, Jake Query in studio. Sit tight. I'll get back to you in a second on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline from Sports Talk, Bob Lovell. Friday and Saturday nights get a big weekend. Sectional semifinal Friday night. You got the finals tomorrow. Bob Lovell brought to you by your 14 Central Indiana CarX locations, run by Joe Childers. That's CarX.com to maintain late winter road readiness today. Hello, Bob.
Hey, John, how are you?
We got a sellout in Noblesville tonight, from what I've heard. Is that accurate?
I wouldn't. It should be. How could you not get excited about that game? And I just think, to this point, the whole thing's been great, to be honest, John. But there's no way it's not a sellout. There's no way a lot of these aren't all jam-packed and sold out, John. There's tremendous basketball going on all over the state tonight.
No, I completely agree with you on that. It looks like with how that looks, certainly up in Noblesville, that a sellout would be accurate because there's a lot of good stuff going on tonight in that sectional semifinal.
Well, Westfield Noblesville starts it off at 6, and then you have the rematch of the Mudsock game, as they like to call it in Hamilton County, with HSC and Fishers. So Fishers comes in ranked number 1, Noblesville number 2, Westfield, I think, 3rd or 4th, somewhere in there. So, when we did the pairing show, we said that was one of, if not the best sectionals in the state. Nothing to this point has changed your mind. You see Fishers eliminates Carmel in the first round, and just to show you how tough it is. So, yeah, I mean, that's a great sectional, as good as there is in the state. And these teams are phenomenal, quite frankly.
Yeah, no, Westfield, Noblesville, as Bob mentioned, Hamilton Southeastern, and Fishers, 19-2, 21-2, 15-9, and 23-1. That is loaded in Noblesville, Bob.
It really is. It's been that competitive all year long. These teams are really good. At Lawrence North, John, you got Cathedral taking on Warren Central, and then Addicts playing Lawrence North. There's a couple of really good games right there.
Yeah, you got that. Southport tonight, Decatur Central, Roncalli, Ben Davis in Southport, Avon, Terre Haute South over at Terre Haute South, Terre Haute North, and Brownsburg, a part of that too. Martinsville, Bloomington South, Center Grove, Bloomington North. That's just to name a few in 4A that we're talking about. Yeah, as we mentioned, it is loaded.
It is loaded, and you and I have talked about this before. This is semifinal Fridays in some respects may be the best night of the entire time. I mean, you got obviously 4 games going on at sites all over the state. Clearly, tomorrow night championship night with that sort of drama, but tonight we have a whole lot of games. I mean, really, really good matchups.
So Bob Lovell, Indiana Sports Talk, is going to have you covered. All right, you cover the entire state. Your wealth of affiliation around the state of Indiana has your back, or you got to hit absolutely everything. So we mentioned a lot of the things here in central Indiana, Hamilton County, Marion County, Hancock County, whatever. Around the state, what other matchups are you looking at that you're going to cover later on tonight, just out of our general vicinity, Bob?
I think you always, at this time of year, go down south to the Lagodi sectional. You have Reveille and Orleans, but you have Bar Reeve and Lagodi. Bar Reeve, Lagodi is always whenever they play, their gyms are full. It's jam-packed. They're 2 really, really good teams. Lagodi, not as highly rated as they have been. Bar Reeve ranked number 2 in single A. I love that all the time. I think that year in and year out, that's a pretty good matchup. Evansville Christian is really, really good, ranked number 1 off and on. They're at the Tecumseh sectional playing Northeast Du Bois, which is a really, really that's an interesting matchup to say the least. I think another one that comes to mind, quite frankly, Linton Stockton and Sullivan over at the Paoli sectional. Sullivan's having one of those years. They're really, really good. Linton Stockton is Linton Stockton. In the second game of that, I mentioned this, South Knox taking on one of your favorite schools, Eastern Green. So
the Thunderbirds. They have not had a good year in the regular season, Bob.
They are, but they're in the wrong sectional because South Knox played well. Linton Stockton is really good, and as I mentioned, Sullivan has only lost, I think, 2 or 3 games to this point, and so that's a tough matchup for your guys. That's a really, really good sectional. over in Greencastle, Southmont, and North Putnam. But Park Heritage is having a tremendous season. I'm excited about the Park Tudor Covenant Christian matchup at Sheridan, pulling for my guy Timmy Adams, and hope that they're able to move on. And it's just, John, again, not to sound redundant, but I really am. There are great matchups all over the state, and that's why this is so much fun, and it's why we all enjoy this time of year and look so forward to it.
Yeah, it's Bob Lovell of Indiana Sports Talk. He's going to have you covered both tonight, tomorrow night. Make sure you're up to date whenever he's on. The Boilers of Michigan State will be in action coming up tomorrow evening. He'll keep you updated on that. Then, of course, we're just really a big-time college basketball weekend. Maybe a preview of the Sycamores going for the outright title in the Mo Valley on Sunday against Murray State, right?
You'll be glued to the TV, or you could be there.
I'm going.
I mean?
Yes. Greg Rakestraw and I are going on Sunday.
Good for you. The place will be jam-packed, and I think they'll be in good shape, to be honest with you. I think they, quite frankly, they are you just like how they've turned things around at this particular time to get themselves back into the mix. That's not an easy thing to do, and they've done it and done it well. And so I'm excited about the opportunity. They really do, as we've talked about before. It'd be great to win the outright. It's all wonderful, but you still got to get yourself now. You got to get through the tournament and to assure yourself of a spot in the NCAA tournament. I think they're good. I think the fact that they've turned some things around has to get people's attention. And they're certainly capable, and I think they're deserving of being in the tournament. But we'll just wait. But have fun tomorrow, really. I'm jealous to be.
I have told Josh Schertz, I told him yesterday, I said, my motto around here is, because I have now made people around here an Indiana State fan. I said, listen, if not for Indiana State, there's going to be basically one team representing the state of Indiana, and that's Purdue. So everybody is a Sycamore fan now. So I've made everybody around here into a Sycamore fan. I just had told Josh Schertz, I said, my motto is for you guys, you got to win it to be in it. I don't trust anybody, especially any committee. Zero. Nothing. No, on at-large.
You're 100% right. Having worked in the Horizon League for 7 years, a few years back, being in charge of all the basketball, we've talked about this before. The power conferences don't want Missouri Valley teams in the league, and they're on the committee. They have a strong, they have strength in those committees, and so you need to take care of business and not put it in the hands of some people you don't know, but you also know they don't want you there. You need to take it out of their hands and win the whole thing outright.
They be rocking tonight, tomorrow night. That's Indiana Sports Talk and our good friend Bob Lovell every Friday with our high school sports rundown brought to you by your 14 Central Indiana CarX locations run by Joe Childers. That's CarX.com to maintain late winter road readiness today. Bob, have an absolute blast this weekend. We'll do it again coming up next Friday.
Thanks, John. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the game tomorrow.
Bob Lovell of Indiana Sports Talk right there. Classic stations across Indiana. You know how many, Jake, how many affiliated stations? I think you got 20 plus, maybe 40 some.
I was going to say high 30s, low 40s, right?
Yeah, the JMV Takeover's got one. Got one every Saturday night. You got one right there.
They could simulcast the JMV Takeover on the Fan and make it two, right?
Yeah. I've told them there are a couple down near where I grew up that would look for programming on a Saturday night. But,
your first year of DJing on an actual radio station was where?
1994, Win 106, WINN, Mount Vernon, Seymour, Columbus.
Okay.
Scipio, Indiana.
If you had to guess the musical artist that you played with the highest frequency in that first year.
Ace of Base.
Yeah, that was huge, man.
Ace of Base.
How about the Breeders?
That was right there. Cannonball just came out.
One hit wonder. Cranberries.
Mm-hmm. Cranberries, big deal. Dolores O'Riordan. The late, great Dolores O'Riordan. But a lot of Ace of Base. The Sign.
Any
and
grunge?
All That She Wants. Oh, yes, yeah. Because that was becoming by the time I started just out of college in 93. it was becoming mainstream. Right?
Oh, well, yeah.
I mean, it was. Oh man, that's
I mean,
hard.
In Utero
running.
would have been out right around that time.
It
right?
was, and everybody had already fallen in love with Nirvana. So yeah, Ace of Base. Well, I know what Creep by Radiohead was a big target song.
So I interned at MTV in the summer of '94, and I can still tell you like the 5 videos that were played the entire The Offspring.
Yeah,
Keep Them Separated.
Yep,
whatever, that was huge.
Come Out and Play.
The Beastie Boys, which one would it have been? Sabotage and
Sure Shot. Yeah,
and
Ill Communications.
The other one that was huge that summer that was played all the time was Regulator.
Yeah, Warren G and Nate Dogg.
Constant.
So DJ Skids, I don't know if you've ever heard the mini mix he has between Michael McDonald's I Keep Forgetting and Regulate is an all-time classic.
I have heard that. Yeah.
It is.
I like the one he does also with Men at Work Down Under.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Also a good one.
Yeah.
Right.
He did that, and he does one that I love.
Is that a new sweatshirt you've got on?
It is not. It's the old. No, it is. It is kind of new. I haven't worn it very much. I've never been.
But it looks
like this is not the powder blue Indiana State
freshly
color.
laundered.
Yeah,
like very white.
Well, I'm clean as hell, but this is the kind of this is blue, but Indiana State blue to me is powder blue.
I would agree with that.
So
I would agree
with that. This is a little bit off.
That's more Sycamore Sam blue.
Yes, exactly. Or the forest. You might wear that in the forest.
Right.
All right, Corbin, we'll do it. Jay Query's in studio. Quick break. We'll come back. One more question regarding IndyCar and at least the short-term future and the news that's been reported today. Pacers, Pelicans tonight at 8 o'clock. That tip time, 7:30 coverage begins right here. And we got Mike Wells of ESPN Radio, top of the hour. Kyle Neddenrip of the Star, 4:30. Don Fischer, voice of the Hoosiers, 5 o'clock. Hey, don't go anywhere. The AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
This
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah, when I was at Win 106 WINN, Mount Vernon, Seymour, Columbus, Jake, this was in heavy rotation.
Massive song, right? Now,
Ace of Base.
I'm trying to think of their other big hits. It's hard to do when this one's playing, you know what I mean?
It is, yeah. All That She Wants.
That's the big one, yeah.
And Beautiful Life. And
I think
they were from
their signature,
well, they're
right?
from Sweden. They were Scandinavian too,
Correct.
so it was always a big comparison to ABBA. So
they were big, man.
Yeah,
they were big, no doubt about it.
Scipio, what was too? There, a little building in Scipio where once upon a time you couldn't figure out why it stunk in there. It smelled like something dead, and they found a dead possum that was in the ceiling tiles. Dead, just crawled up there and died. That's why. Dead possum.
I thought maybe it was too much Ace of Base and just did it in, right? It was like.
So Racer.com or Racer Magazine said yesterday that maybe IndyCar's not going to go to those dedicated spots. And then somebody had said, it seems like that maybe the conversation's back on. And if you want to blame somebody, blame the big teams. You blaming the big teams on this? Power teams?
I think the big teams are owned and operated by the big minds, right? I mean, like Bobby Rahal, obviously Roger Penske, Chip Ganassi, for that matter, obviously, Zach Brown and McLaren. Those are the guys running those teams. And so they, I think, are probably the ones that have the best grasp or understanding on what it is that sponsors or partners want. And so I could see them. I mean, look, Graham Rahal getting bounced out of the 500 last year, I thought actually in reality it probably was great PR for Graham because of the way he handled it. But it's a less than ideal situation for the sponsors and the partners and everything else. So I think they are aware that in today's ultra-competitive sponsorship climate that they want as much assurance for their potential partners as possible. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying I could see that would be their mindset.
Man, Lotus. Lotus is such an awesome car name.
Agree.
Car manufacturer. And it ran around here like it was Yugo.
It did. Jean Alesi and Simona Di Silvestro that year. And, I mean, they were way, way, way off the pace, right? And I think that's part of what, like a new engine manufacturer, I'm not saying they wouldn't be, this doesn't automatically give them speed, but they wouldn't want the humiliation of being bounced from the Indy 500, and that probably goes into the enticement of trying to secure those partners.
Lotus was the car in The Spy Who Loved Me that went into the water and was also a submarine.
Lotus was also, in A Day in the Life by the Beatles.
Hmm?
He blew his mind out in a car. He didn't notice that the lights had changed. Paul McCartney wrote that about a fatal car accident that he had witnessed. And the car accident that he had witnessed was a guy that was like 26 years old that was driving a Lotus, and he was the heir to the Guinness fortune, the Guinness brewery fortune. It was a guy from the Guinness family.
It's a big deal right there. It is. Jake Query of Query & Company, we just wanted to bring you in here to talk about that IndyCar situation, to become a little bit more educated on that, too. You were down at the Combine. Marvin Harrison Jr. was a no-show to meet with the media today, and you got some of the media making a huge deal about that. I don't think it's a big deal whatsoever, but in terms of, man, it'd be great if it turned into a big deal and somebody let that dude slide, because somebody would get, to me, if you're talking about the best player in the draft, and I know everybody's always going to say quarterback, that's okay. The best player to me is him.
Hey, I remember the year that Randy Moss was in the draft.
Yep.
He had come out of Marshall where he was unbelievable. Rick Venturi will tell you the story about when Randy Moss slid to the Vikings, because there were character issues about Randy Moss, right? There was, and because of what happened at Florida State, Notre Dame, and then he's at Marshall, and then he goes into the draft. Minnesota ends up getting him, I think 19th, 20th, something like that. And Rick Venturi's told me the story about when they went down for like a scrimmage in the preseason with Minnesota. I think it was Denny Green was like, "Hey, wait until you see this dude. Like you knew he was good, but wait until you see." And Rick said, they went out there and he watched him through sessions and drills and was like, okay, this guy's different. And I'm not saying Marvin Harrison Jr. is Randy Moss, but John, I thought Charles McDonald made a really good point on our show today. He went from a top 5 quarterback at Ohio State to a transfer quarterback at Ohio State, and his numbers did not dip. Clearly, Marvin Harrison Jr.'s body of work and what you see just from what he was able to do in production in Columbus, shy of like some sort of a terrible legal issue, his stock's not going to drop, right? I mean, teams can smoke screen it all they want. There are probably a lot of teams that are saying he's going to drop.
People love to poke holes in the best like that. And nobody's ever said a negative word about the guy until now.
You know what? It's part of why I said, somebody asked me why I thought Caitlin Clark would announce now that she's coming out. And I'm like, look, she's reached the point in her game where there's nothing left to do but nitpick it, right? So you might as well just go ahead. Her stock's never going to – I mean, it's not like she would drop anyway, but you get what I'm saying.
You think she sells out every Fever home game?
I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say that the Fever will sell out their season tickets.
You think so?
I really do. I could be totally crazy in that. And I'm willing to have people say to me – now, what I said earlier, John, is look, I'm old enough to remember when the Pacers drafted Wayman Tisdale, and it was the biggest deal. We got Wayman. We got Wayman. I still have the button. We got Wayman. I still have the McDonald's placemats. We got Wayman. But then you found out he was kind of a system player at Oklahoma. I don't think she is, but it is true. She may be Jackie Stiles. She may be – Steph White was a great college player and a very good pro player, but wasn't the breakthrough that she is. So we'll see, but I do think the first year there's going to be massive intrigue about Caitlin Clark, and if she lives up to the billing, then yes, I think she's going to be a major star. I think it's a huge
I just thought maybe it would be the first handful of games, and then maybe you see what happens, and if you don't win,
there's probably some truth to that.
Yeah.
But there's only 20 games, right?
Yeah, right.
But there's probably some truth to that. We'll see.
No, it's great. It is great for everything. And having a girl that plays basketball around here at a young age, it is great for everybody. Because certainly there's been intrigue considering how many times that she's been with that team in prime time on Fox.
Oh, look at when she played in Bloomington, when she played in Lafayette, look at the crowds that came out, right? And half of the state of Iowa is going to be traveling here, at least in the beginning. But to your point, you got to sustain it.
When's Hy-Vee going to be here, by the way? I thought Hy-Vee was coming.
Like 7 years ago, right?
God dang, Hy-Vee, get here. Did Zionsville screw that up? I get on Zionsville.
I think there was something about Zionsville and Whitestown.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then Zionsville and Whitestown fight all the time.
Correct. That's correct.
It's so weird.
That's correct.
Like the Hatfields and the McCoys up there.
I think
fight
they're
over
still
space.
fighting over our old towers, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, probably turning that into something. Yeah,
you're right.
What's his name up on 7 in his bedazzled jeans is probably water skiing behind another yacht because of that sale. What's his nuts? Jay Query and company, man. Have a great weekend. Stop laughing. Have a great weekend too, man. Be listening to the JMV Takeover.
I will. We will call in a request. I don't know what Shannon's requested. We were out of town last weekend, so we'll call one.
It was docking a couple weekends ago.
It's probably gonna be someone. You're probably gonna have to fire up some Skid Row or something. I don't know. We'll see.
Good to see you, buddy.
All right, likewise.
Jay Query right there. Mike Wells of ESPN Radio. Pacers Pelicans later on tonight. We got that conversation and then some. That's coming up next. Hey, JMV here with Brian Kahn.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, the Mike Wells 4 o'clock hour slow jammer entry courtesy of the soundtrack of greatness from the 1980s, Crush Groove. Mike's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Mike Wells, here's your slow jam.
I stand all alone, so often turning tender love, all alone, let you come. I can't sing you for. Oh, here we go, Jay. Here we go, Jay.
You got it.
Tender love, you're so tender, close to me, baby, I surrender.
There you go. Force MDs. Tender love. I was going to give you a little bit of background vocal on that one, too, if you needed it. Well done.
Hey, look, hey, Foursome D's. Hey, movie. Got to be Crush Groove, right?
It is. What's your favorite song from the Crush Groove soundtrack?
Man, you know what? It's been so long. I just know Crush Grooving, body moving.
That's awesome.
Body moving.
Let me tell you this. The first time I ever saw the Beastie Boys, and they had a song called She's On It that they performed, and that's on that soundtrack. Here's one. The Gap Band had a song called Love Triangle, which is equally awesome. It was on that. Sheila E. was Rock, Holly Rock. Everybody got a Holly Rock? That's on there too, I think, right? So.
Oh, man, listen. I tell you, it's funny. The first time I wanted to go to New York, I was the Crush Groove came out like 83, 84, somewhere around there. It was when the Fat Boys were in they basically had the Italian spot, the pizza spot buffet. Yep. I was like, man, I don't want to be as big as the boys, but if I can get up in there and eat like that in New York City, I'm eating good. That is, man, that's around the time, Crush Groove is around the time, like Break-In, Electric Boogaloo and stuff. All those movies came out around the same time.
Beat Street?
Early to mid 80s.
The Fat Boys, that was big with us too. I could not do the human beatbox stuff. I couldn't, whatever that was.
Yeah. Hey, my sister, who was sporting a Jerry curl at the time, had the Jerry curl juice running on the collar of her polos.
Yeah. Back
then, she could seriously beatbox, man. She used to kill it with the Fat Boys like that.
Man, those are the good old days right there. Crush Groove and the Force MDs and Tender Love. The Mike Wells slow jammery entry on this Friday. Did you catch the Pacers on Wednesday night at home against the Pelicans?
Man, hey, no, because thank God your favorite member of the Wells had a basketball game. So we were up in Westfield, and based off of Twitter, as I was checking the score, as we were making a drive home, it just came across once again. It's the same thing we were talking about a week ago today, Jay.
Yeah.
Why people can't fully buy in on what the Pacers are, on what why you can't believe that okay, they can close the gap and climb the ladder in the Eastern Conference. They continue to put themselves in a position where they unfortunately tinkle down their legs against teams they should be beaten.
Well, I will tell you this, and obviously you go back to Sunday, and against Dallas, I thought that was their best game of the season. I really did, from start to finish. And then, you mentioned that the tinkle down your leg factor. That was the second of the back-to-back against Toronto on Monday. And I brought this up a little bit earlier. It's just like it's really good, it's bad, it's really good. I mean, on Wednesday, I thought that game against the Pelicans, I thought from start to finish was their most professional win, because at the start, they started out with a big lead. You saw the second half especially, the Pelicans counterpunched, and then in the final 3 minutes on both ends of the floor, it was Halliburton taking over, it was Miles showing some defense, and they put away the Pelicans, which I think that's what everybody wants to see. It just, you want to see it on a more consistent basis. You don't want to go from Dallas on Sunday all the way down to that Toronto Monday thing and then back up again. And then you don't hold your breath about what you're going to see in New Orleans coming up later on tonight.
Well, so that's what I was going to ask you off of that. Obviously, you play that home road back-to-back against the Pelicans. If they were to go down and lose tonight, would you discredit what happened on Wednesday? I got to tell you, I completely had my day screwed up. But, yeah, you go out, Zion gets 23, Ingram gets 30, C.J. McCollum gets 23, and you still go out and still win the basketball game the way they did. Does it lose some luster off of it? Or are you like, you know what, they're on the road playing, against a Pelican team that's, going to, make the playoffs? Or do you look at it as, okay, it's a warning, yet another warning flag?
I look at it this way. You got to start stringing together some wins. And the reason being is you're going to end up in the play-in. And I think we all understand this has been way too good of a season for them to end up in that situation. And you've got, all these teams, like the whole definition of the East with that group in mind, it is changing on a nightly basis. So the one that's going to get out of that is the one that's going to string together consistently wins, and the schedule gives them the opportunity. It is just some nights that play, especially in a quarter or two, or especially a fourth quarter, doesn't lend you to believe. But here's what I brought up last week, and I want to see if you're with me on this. I had called for them to win 45 games. They are still on target to win 45 games, and people have asked me, hey, do you feel bad about being so critical of them when they're still on target to get into that neighborhood in which you suggested they would at the beginning of the season? And my response has been yes, because I have raised the bar. I thought you raised the bar when you made that deal for Siakam. So I raised the bar of their consistent level of play a little bit higher, even than when I felt they were going to win 45 at the start of the season.
Okay, so let me go ahead and throw this out there then. So let's just say they only end up winning 45 games, and we talked the bar is a lot higher because of the deal of Siakam. So if they get just finish 45, even though I won't say 46 wins, are you pissed about it? Because of the expectations when they went out and got Siakam to help hopefully, have even more success.
I think it's all dependent upon their finish and what they look like in the postseason. Now, I do. Because I really do think the expectations were raised to a point now to where we all had, I think, this team being better, but you were just kind of cautioned about it at the beginning of the season. And now, they gave you a reason to raise that bar a little bit, and I think everybody out there should. So I think it's all dependent upon how they finish and what they do in the postseason, which I think also equates to postseason position, which will, I think, lend to the amount of success that they have. So I think it all depends on that. I don't think we know, for example, right now.
Okay, so I'm about to set you and I up. We're gonna get ourselves set up to potentially have people come back at us on this one, and I say that because we've talked about games they've lost that they probably should have won and everything. Where they're sitting at right now, how many wins do they finish the season with? You think, in your opinion, do they surpass 45 and get closer to 50?
I think that they probably surpass 40. I don't know if they get closer to 50. I do think they get over 45 now. What are they at, 34? I think presently, all right, 34 as it stands. So that's going to take 11 more. I mean, I don't think I would be off to suggest you better. I mean, hell, you better win 11 more. Let me see right here. For example, New Orleans tonight, San Antonio on the road, at Dallas, Minnesota's good back here on Thursday of next week, at Orlando, at OKC. Those are all incredibly tough games in what is supposed to be a soft schedule after the All-Star break. But here's where the softness occurs. And what's been problematic, Mike, about them is they haven't handled those teams below them very well. Chicago now, Brooklyn, you got a couple of different times down the stretch. Detroit, you get Chicago again. You get, again, Brooklyn 3 times in all. I think it all comes down to what you end up doing against the teams that you've kind of loafed against, unfortunately, so far this season.
Hey, it's funny you said it. I was going to say, I got more faith in the Pacers against the teams that are quote-unquote good teams in the NBA than I do in the teams that are, the boo-boo teams. Like, if they probably wish they could play Milwaukee, even though Milwaukee's playing better basketball with Doc Rivers right now, that they could play even more games against the Milwaukee Bucks and everything. But, yeah, I have more faith in them against the good teams than the teams that you look at on paper and say, all right, this is they'll find a way to win the game no matter what.
Mike, I'll tell you this. Let's go with their final 8 right here, beginning on the 29th of March. That's on a Friday at home against the Lakers. Their final 8 goes Lakers, Brooklyn at a home and home, OKC here, Miami here, Toronto and Cleveland on the road, and Atlanta here. You have an opportunity to close really strong in your final 8. So to me, it's going to depend upon exactly how you position yourself in between right there. But you have a very winnable, could get on a run in your final 8 situation to me.
Yeah, and think about that. Let's take it a step further. They go in the playoffs into the postseason feeling good, not with as many question marks going into the postseason. They feel good about themselves going in, and potentially not having much doubt about who they're facing if they're able to close the regular season on a strong note.
Yeah, that's it. That's kind of how I spread it out a little bit, because I think everybody just kind of have said, after the All-Star break, you look at the numbers and the Pacers' schedule softens. But you got OKC a couple of times. Orlando's got you. If you lost one to Golden State, you got to go out west again. You've lost one already to the Clippers. So it's not as easy as I think you first thought. But if you can maintain and get to that final 8, I think really in that stretch run, which, let's just face it, you string together some wins no matter where you are in the East right now. But in the position where the Pacers are, or anybody else for that matter, then you can really set yourself up. And I think the Pacers have a final 8 opportunity to do that if it holds.
You mentioned Orlando's playing good basketball now. I mean, earlier in the season, I'm like, this team made me good. But, they're sitting right now in the 6th seed in the East. They got the exact same record as the Pacers.
Yeah.
So I remember when we were talking about, oh, my God, the schedule's favoring them and stuff down the stretch, and they can make some good things happen out of it. So it'll be intriguing on which team shows up. But, again, I have more faith in the Pacers against the quote-unquote good teams in the league than the ones who are supposed to be wins for them.
Yeah, that's what's going to be disappointing. There's no way around that. You're going to get to the end of the year, no matter where they are, more positive than negative, but you're going to look back at Portland twice, at Chicago, at Charlotte a couple of different times, Toronto a couple of different times. You're going to look back at those games and go, man, what could have been? There's no way around that reflection, Mike, when the season's over.
Yeah, 100%. Did you do the combine this week? Did you do it?
I went down there on Wednesday. Yeah, it was a blast. Blast.
Did you have Ballard on the show?
No, Ballard went on with Swebo in the morning. I was supposed to have Steichen, and he was sick. And then I was supposed to have Rappaport, and he did 3 other shows and then left.
All right, so here's my question.
And I was never supposed to have Schefter. Never, ever supposed to have Schefter.
So the question is, are you more – so who did you more wrong, Rappaport for ghosting you, or how things went down with Schefter many, many years ago?
I would rather talk to anybody than Adam Schefter. Anybody. I don't care who it is. If it's somebody that's helping clean up after everything's gone, I would rather talk to that person than him. Because even when – and then I don't know if it's just me, and I think by now it is just me, but he was just – when he was at the NFL Network and on with me, and they were promoting him all the time, and they were putting him on my afternoon show at NDE when I was over there, he was awful. He was just always short and acted like he didn't want to be there. So that had to be more like me, because he doesn't act like, he doesn't act like a horse's rear end to McAfee like that.
Yeah.
So, it's got to just be me. And now I think I understand that, and I probably should own it, right? I don't know if I should put a badge on myself for it, but I should just own the fact that it never really worked. There's not one good one from the NFL Network to ESPN, not one that ever worked. It was all bad.
Man, so basically you're throwing in the towel from the NFL folks at those stations. I'm trying to get the heavyweights to come on the show with you.
Listen, I have a good time and a good conversation with everybody. It's just never, for whatever reason, worked out with him. And then he caught me on a bad day when I was sick, and he gave me that crap, and I gave him the crap right back, and kind of embarrassed us both on the air. So really, it's not like again, I didn't win any badge of courage for that either. I look like a butthole, so that didn't help me either.
No, that's okay. I got to tell you, this is nothing bad. It's not bad because it's good if you're a Colts fan and you're the Colts organization. But as I was paying attention to Ballard when he met with the media down there on Wednesday, I was like, man, this is boring.
Yeah, because
really?
you're drafting 15th right now, and you're in year number 8. I don't know, and you got to reboot. I mean, there's really not much. Like, I will say this, I don't think there's much out there that the people covering the team or the people that are fans of the team that they don't truly understand what's necessary right now.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. He gave updates on Anthony Richardson.
Yep.
Piers Michael Pittman's not going anywhere. But normally, every year in the season press conference, at the combine, there's always some type of drama. But this was like a whole hum. I'm like, all righty then. So hey, it's good for the boys who are covering them. They're not chasing a bunch of crazy things. But I'm just like, yeah, this is not a normal Ballard off season.
You think I have given him 3 years after last year's reboot of confidence from Jim Irsay? I gave him, obviously, this past year. You see what happens, and then you see growth in year 2, and then year 3 to see it all finally start to come together. Others tell me that maybe it all starting to come together this year is going to be necessary. Do you think, and again, I'm not going to say a large level of success. They didn't win the division when it was right there in their hands. They didn't go to the postseason when it was right there in their hands. So you look at it that way. However, they had a much better season than most thought that they were going to have. Does that expedite, the whole process of Ballard and this reboot, either turning it around in year number 2 or being on the hook maybe a year in front of what a lot of us thought it was going to be?
Well, see, this is where I look at it. This was the second, and I know, yes, it's Carson Wentz, but this is the second time in 3 seasons. This was the second time in 3 years that the Colts went into the final week of the season. They just had to win to make the playoffs. Clearly, the 2021 season that just turned out to be a disaster. But you're at home. Yes, the backup quarterback. All you have to do is win at home against a rookie quarterback, a damn good rookie quarterback, and you couldn't do that to make the playoffs. Like, I know they won more, they exceeded more considering, the downfall of Shaq Leonard, the Jonathan Taylor situation, obviously the Anthony Richardson situation. But I'm not a believer in saying, okay, they exceeded expectations, won more games than what people thought. You're at home, final week 18. All you got to do is win a game and get to the postseason, and you lost. So if I'm Jim Irsay, if I'm the Colts, I'm like, all right, come on, Chris. You can't keep getting close to the finish line but not running through the tape as the winner.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because it was told to me, Mike, that maybe the 3 years that I thought was logical, maybe you pushed that up a little bit because clearly they didn't win anything last year. There was nothing to win last year. There was nothing but, once again, disappointment at the end of the regular season. But they did play better for the most part, and it kind of makes you wonder, especially, with Anthony Richardson and whether or not he's able to stay out there, where this might be, and then how you view, Chris Ballard's situation round 2 after year number 2 compared to what we all thought was maybe going to be a 3-year window, once again, of a wait and see. So it's really weird because we're in a spot, Mike, and you know this from covering the team so long, where you rarely have seen somebody go into an 8th year of running a football team with the lack of results that he has had.
Yeah.
I don't even know who it would be.
Well, no, God, man. but going into the 8th year with only one playoff win. One playoff win and please correct me if I'm wrong. 3 playoff appearances, Luck, Rivers, and Minshew.
Oh, Minshew hadn't been in.
No, I'm talking about in the playoffs. No,
Minshew. Yeah, that was regular season.
Yeah.
So Minshew didn't. Yeah.
So what? 2 playoff appearances, Luck and Rivers.
Luck and Rivers. Luck won one in Houston, lost in Kansas City, and Rivers and company lost when they were the extra team. By the way, the extra wild card team. They go to Buffalo and lose.
And lost. That was the Komoko Ture not focus game. So man,
Komoko Ture. Yes, that's a little instant recall from you.
Man, I'm trying to throw in a bonus playoff appearance. So it's only 2 in 8 years.
Hey, I did want to ask you this, and listen, it is for Chuck Strong and for cancer, and we are all for any promotion whatsoever to battle that ridiculously awful, blankable disease. We're all in the same gang for that, and we always will be. However, I did want to ask your thoughts because it was brought up to me earlier this week. Andrew Luck, evidently in April, is going to make an appearance at the Chuck Strong Gala as it stands. And then that got everybody asking me, all right, well, the next step is going to be Ring of Honor. And then I counter with my stance where it has been is he doesn't go to the Ring of Honor until this team cashes in at a very high level of winning here. Until that is not ever going to be completely gone with that decision. And then afterwards, what happened with the losing, the consistent quarterback change, they have to win at an incredibly high expected level before he could ever have that consideration and the fans be on board with it. Is that fair to say still?
I got to disagree with you on that one. I can't say until they start winning because we know how this is a year-to-year league. They can go out and suck next year, and, who knows what could happen. I think, man, it'll be 5 years in August since he retired. I think I think he can go in the Ring of Honor. I think the Ring of Honor is next. I think he is. It sucks what he did. He left them high and dry, especially the timing of it all. But you can't discredit what he did on the football field from a talent standpoint.
Hey, Mike, the problem is, you know this as well as I do, and I'm not suggesting that it's right, but the moment you have that, and especially without something that helps it get further in your rear view, help you forget about it, and that would be obviously winning and success, that thing's going to get booed.
Yeah. Well, that's the risk that Andrew takes, and you got to think that you would like to think that if that's which it is a possibility. I don't want to say if it could be a possibility. It is a possibility. You would like to think that they're going to put it in Andrew's hands and say, is this a good time for you to come back? Could you imagine Andrew? They doing Ring of Honor in a season where the Colts are sitting now. Let's just say 2-7 or something. It's late in the season, and they're sucking. They bring them back for the Ring of Honor and the quarterback play. It's just horrendous. I mean, they might be throwing peanuts from the stands in Andrew Luck then.
Yeah, I just don't think that's anything that you would want to mess with until the fans have a really good reason. Most, if not, I'm not going to say all, it's never going to be all, but most of the fans have a good reason to completely put that era behind them. So that's my thought.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it from that standpoint. I just thought, he needs to live. Yeah, holy cow. They better do it in week 1 of a season, man. Do it in week 1 or whatever the home opener is of a season following them making the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't even know if they even have thoughts on doing it, but when that was asked of me, that has been steadfast my response, and that continues to be, even with him returning. And again, it's good coming back for the Chuck Strong Gala, getting money versus cancer is always a good thing. We always cheer for that regardless, but you just know how that's going to end if you do. I think anything like that in his celebration here in that stadium, if you do that before they win anything. And, fair or unfair, that's how I feel, and I think a lot of people would agree.
I think this is a gigantic step for Andrew Luck to come back. And I mean, obviously, he was living here in Indianapolis and everything. But for him to come back and make that kind of appearance at that kind of event is a big deal. I think that is a giant step for Andrew Luck. We've seen him on the sideline of games, at Stanford games and everything. But to do it and come back in Indianapolis where the cameras are going to be here nonstop and being here the way he is, I think that is a significant step for Andrew Luck.
So Mike Wells of ESPN Radio. Hey, I know you got to run here. Tell that awesome girl I said hello, Layla, and have a great weekend. We won at New Augusta last night. That's where we played, New Augusta.
Nice. Hey, we wrap up tomorrow, conference semifinals, and then potentially the championship game out there at Franklin Central Middle School, and then the middle school career is officially done tomorrow. No matter what, it'll be done either with a loss or with a or with a conference championship out there. And the Center Grove girls finish up next week, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think we're still not subbing in and out offensively and defensively here. That's not like Coach Spolster's not doing that for you, is he?
Well, we hope now. They're sitting at 18-0 right now. They're trying to finish it up undefeated. I'm actually sitting in the car waiting on your girl right now.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you in a bad spot right there. I will say this in counter. Our girls, we run an offense called Molasses because that's how slow it looks.
And more importantly, though, is my girl Laney getting good run, though. She gets out there and runs. But I don't know. We got a Molasses offense. We don't get it up and down the floor very quickly. That's unfortunate. You guys are playing Princeton style, man. Old school Princeton style.
It's a lot more boring than that. A lot more mistake prone than that too. I just get out there. I'm bad. I say, hey, push it, and it's like slow break. If you ever played in a slow break game, like everybody has to be past half court before the ball handler crosses half court. That's kind of what we look like sometimes.
So man, you guys are gigantic polar opposite of Louisville and Marymount, man.
Yes.
Man, hey, listen, they wanted me to do ESPN radio tomorrow night. I asked if I could do it Sunday night. So 8 p.m. to midnight on Sunday night. Because, listen, I need to be able to, when I'm hopping in the car running errands, to listen to you on the JMV Takeover tomorrow night.
Buddy. I appreciate that. So listen for Mike Wells on ESPN Radio coming up right here on Sunday night. And say hello to Layla and everybody in the fam for me. We'll catch up next week.
All right, brother. Be good. Have a great weekend.
So Mike Wells of ESPN Radio on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Kyle Nedenrip, a big couple of games in Noblesville tonight. Sold out, evidently. That and more from the star Kyle Nedenrip's with us next.
I'm from Perry Township, down on the south side of Indianapolis.
10 o'clock a couple of weeks ago on the JMV Takeover.
I like a cold one.
And requested Tarzan Boy by Baltimore. It was awesome. I didn't know it was him until I listened to it again, and I said, that was Clayton Anderson. Inside the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Hello to everybody in there. Busy weekend for us, for me, coming up tomorrow night, JMV Takeover, 6 until midnight, B105.7. That's the All Request Saturday night where we go nationwide. If you haven't heard it, we get Florida, Vermont, Maine, New York, Texas, California, South Dakota calls. It is growing big time, at least with its streaming and app presence. You can check it out tomorrow night, B105.7. Live in studio for the JMV Takeover from 6 until midnight. Of course, that's going to be sectional final Saturday night. Tonight's semifinal Friday night. And to talk more about that around the state of Indiana and certainly around the area, from the Indy Star, friend of the show, Kyle Neddenrip joins us now. Hello, Kyle. How are you?
Hey, doing well, John. How are you doing?
I'm assuming you're going to Noblesville tonight. Do you already have your ticket, if so?
I hope so. I double-checked, triple-checked, and I think I'm good to go. And I guess we'll find out here when I get there. But I'm hoping we got a good seat and able to see a couple of great games tonight.
Is this like a fire marshal type of game tonight?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think the second game on Tuesday was sort of a fire marshal game too. So I think I think there's been a few of those over the years, and certainly tonight qualifies when you got 1, 2, and 3 all playing at one location.
Yeah, and by the way, Hamilton Southeastern's not a member of that group, but still pretty good in its own right in that game too against Fischer's later on tonight. But Westfield, Noblesville, what do you like about the matchup?
Well, I covered the first time they played each other, and Westfield beat Noblesville on their home court. So they obviously have experience and have success doing that. So, but I really like this Noblesville team. I like both teams, honestly, but this Noblesville team is, veteran team. Aaron Fine, their point guard. It seems like one of those guys who's been around for a long, long time. And then they've got some other guys, Hunter Walston, another senior, Justin Curry, who's a sophomore coming up, and a young man, Barron Walker, who's been playing really well as a sophomore for him. So, the matchup, I think, will, the last game Noblesville played them, they had trouble scoring inside, and a big reason for that is Nick Book, who plays the interior for Westfield, had a really good game. And then, of course, Trey Buchanan, also a really good player for Westfield at the guard spot. So probably what stands out is those two guards, Fine, Buchanan, and then where are they going to get production elsewhere, I would say. And how does Noblesville score inside, I think, is a big key to this game. Can they do that better than they did last time? And, it'll be a possession game. I think it's going to be into the fourth quarter, and, that it'll come down to kind of whoever, performs in the clutch in that situation. So it'll be fun. I can't imagine that game will go more than, I don't think it'll be decided by, 10, 12 points. I think it'll be, 3, 4 right down to the wire, and I wouldn't expect anything less.
All right. So is the Buchanan kid, is he a hell of a lot better than his dad? Because that's what I've been told.
Yeah, he's really good. And, his toughness, 2 years ago, Westfield, Braden Smith kind of blazed a trail like Wyatt Earp through this sectional. And Trey was part of that team, and he did he played a role on that team. And, he's a tough kid too, really tough competitor, played injured, some in last year's sectional. And, he's a tough dude. I think he takes after Braden some that way. And Westfield is now kind of, and with Buchanan, obviously, and Book and Will Harvey, a great golfer, actually, has been playing well for them too. But, they kind of, I think, have something established over time now, which is something they didn't have, a few years ago. They had no sectional titles in their history, and they finally got that one 2 years ago. And Buchanan was part of that. He's done a great job for that team, and he's been on a winning team. And so is Noblesville, to be honest with you. They have history of winning it last year, and those guys all were part of that, who were key parts of this year's team. So you have two teams, I think, and speaking of Buchanan and Fine, teams that have recent tournament success, which, sometimes you have one and the other team doesn't. Both these teams have that. So I think that'll, kind of cancel each other out, which So again, it kind of, to me, it'll just come down to, who kind of gets it done late in the fourth quarter.
Here's Kyle Neddenripp of the Star. He'll be at Noblesville along with the fire marshal later on tonight. Of course, other sectionals here around central Indiana, around Marion County, certainly in Hancock County, Greenfield sectional. Pendleton Heights and New Pal, game one. Muncie Central and Greenfield Central among the most impressive teams throughout the course of the regular season. I'm assuming in whatever class we're talking about, Greenfield Central has been unbeaten and at the top of that list.
Yeah, they've really been a team that, I don't even think Luke Meredith, if you asked him, the Greenfield Central coach, I don't think they expected to be undefeated. Probably nobody does. And they lost some real key pieces from last year's team, including Dylan Moles, who's a great player for him. And, it's been a year where, they've just kind of gained confidence throughout the season. I covered a game earlier this year where they beat Pendleton Heights in double overtime, and Mullins went for 50 in that game and played phenomenal, in that win. They in a last-second shot to win it. So, they're a team that's they seem like sort of a team on a magic carpet ride here. And, I think both them and New Pal probably the favorites to get through tonight, although that's a tough sectional, and those will both be tough games tonight. But, yeah, I think all of Hancock County will be there. If those two teams play each other, you'll have, Julius Gizzi and Braylon Mullins, two of the top juniors in the state, two of the top scorers for sure, going against each other head-to-head. That would be a phenomenal game. But, again, weird things seem to happen on this Friday night semifinal sectional, and it's a night where what do we have? My math is not very good. It's 256 playing tonight, so 128 teams will be eliminated tonight. So it's a big it's a big cross off the list type of night, and you don't want to be on that side of things. So but we'll see some weird games. We'll see some upsets. We'll see some teams go down we thought would advance, and like I said, Greenfield's been that team that hasn't been on that side at all this year, and I would expect them to get through. But, they've got some work cut out against a Muncie Central team that already pulled an upset over Richmond a couple nights ago.
Yeah, there are a lot. You look around, and they're just I'll give you a great example. Up in Lebanon, not a great matchup if you look at it on paper with Crawfordsville, but Danville had such a good season at 19-3. And then Tri-Rest on the other side at 18-6, and Lebanon at 9-14. You look at both Danville and Tri-West as two teams having incredibly strong regular seasons.
Absolutely, and those two teams covered one of their games earlier this year, and Danville got the better of that one. Then they beat Tri-West again a couple of weeks later, but the difference, and I covered those teams, it didn't feel like the difference was much. So Danville been ranked number one for a lot of this year. They fell a little bit with a couple late losses to 4A teams, but Brian Barber those teams are always really tough, physically and mentally for Danville. But having to beat a team like that, I mean, I know it's cliche, to beat a team three times, but especially one that's your own rival, kind of in your own backyard there in Hendricks County, and a team that's pretty talented in its own right. So that I think we'll probably see that game played tomorrow night, unless Lebanon and Crawfordsville have something to say about it. But that would be a really tough test for Danville. But it's also a Danville team. I think if they can get through, they could be a problem for a lot of teams moving forward. Evan Lawrence, their big man inside, going to IU to play football. He's a tough dude. He's a basketball guy first, who kind of his size and athleticism ended up getting him a football scholarship, but last ride for him and a really good group around him. So I think that's a team to keep an eye on. But yeah, very tough test with Tri-West.
Final thing too, and I bring this up because I'm a longtime friend and obviously big fan of Mark Barnheiser and year number 40 at Lafayette. Jeff, 13-9. You kind of look at it that way. They get 23-3 Kokomo. It is their host sectional, so they get this on their home hardwood. And I don't think it was close earlier this season in their meeting in the regular season. Is there's something in that semifinal with Jeff and Kokomo tonight, you think?
That's probably their toughest test Kokomo would have, I think. Harrison gave them a little bit of they came back and they shot a whole bunch of threes, I know, against Kokomo the other night and came up a little bit short. But, yeah, I think it'd be a pretty tough task. I haven't seen Lafayette Jeff in person this season, but I've seen Kokomo a few times. And even besides Flory Badunga, Carson Rogers is a 6'6" senior who's I think probably played his way into the Indiana All-Star conversation, if not on the team entirely with the season he's had. He even leads Kokomo in scoring just by a shade over Flory. So, I think that'll be a really tough test. There aren't, Kokomo's a different team just because of the size that they have. I mean, there aren't any teams out there that I've seen that have two guys that they can go to like that, and then have some pretty good guards as well, who some are a little bit younger, and then maybe a little bit inconsistent at times. But I feel like that Kokomo team is maybe playing the best that they've played all year right now, and they would play. Looking ahead, they would play if they can win that sectional, the winner of the Noblesville sectional. So you could have Fishers against Kokomo in the regional next week. So that would be a really interesting game there. So whoever comes out of that Noblesville sectional basically would play Kokomo. So that's something to look forward to. But we still got a couple nights to go before we get to that round.
If you're in that Noblesville sold-out gym tonight, approach Kyle Neddenrip and say, we heard you on JMV's show a little bit earlier today. Make sure that just to make sure that he's in there tonight, because the place is sold out and going to be packed. Kyle Neddenrip of the Star, some updates on these sectional semifinals on this Friday night on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. It's always a pleasure. I'm sure we'll catch up next week prior to the regionals too.
Absolutely. Feel free to reach out. I appreciate it, John.
You got it. Kyle Neddenrip of the Star on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. And also, I want to give a love out to Paul Casaro and UIndy. Back-to-back GLVC champions. Coach Casaro, friend of the show. Mike Burris, friend of the show. His assistant head coach, associate head coach. But shout out to those on the south side. UIndy getting it done again. Quick break, we'll come back. Top of the hour, Don Fischer, voice of the Hoosiers. IU this weekend on the road in Maryland. We'll talk about that with the voice of the Hoosiers. That is coming up next. Don't go anywhere. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
Hey, guys, looking for... 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
There you go over there. Corbin's in. I'm John. Thank you for joining us. You struggle with me doing this over here, don't you? Would you rather just do it over there yourself?
No, it's fine. I had it in preview. I heard it in my head.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, that happens over there. I mean, it takes a little bit, because for those of you behind the curtain, I run the re-entry music. I'm the one that does that. I'm in charge of it, and the other shows don't. The producer that's running the board does it. So this can be, if you don't do this often, this can be a bit of a hassle, like Corbin is experiencing right now. I don't blame him one bit. Kyle Neddenrip of the Star, the podcast, 107.5, thefan.com. Mike Wells of ESPN Radio. Sunday night on ESPN Radio nationally for Mike, a little bit earlier, too, on a variety of things. From the NFL Combine to the Pacers and the Pelicans tonight. Jake Query was in studio about the latest maybe spots that are just going to be solidified for teams moving forward. That was the story surrounding IndyCar. Jake, his thoughts and the education a little bit earlier. Bob Lovell also on the show. All right. I don't know if you guys know who this is. I don't know if you know who this is, if you trust the info, but people tell me this Trilly Donovan on the social media platform X is pretty much on target with everything. That's what they tell me. So Trilly Donovan, have you guys heard of that? Evidently, within the last hour, the high major hot seat, according to Trilly Donovan, which obviously it's Juwan Howard's on it, Kenny Payne's on it. I mean, hell, two guys that are gone. Stubblefield and Holtman are gone. Johnny Dawkins, Central Florida's on it. A late addition to the list, according to Trilly Donovan, is IU head coach Mike Woodson, and this is what is said about it. After being safe for most of the year, the heat is on in Bloomington. Woodson has made the tournament the last 2 seasons, but finds himself in real jeopardy of not getting a 4th year at IU. That is new to the Trilly Donovan. And this is somebody that does have a high level of college basketball connection here. And because he's right on way too much not to. So that is a thought from Trilly Donovan. If you follow it, and if you don't, hopefully I gave you the ample description. Quick break, we'll come back. Voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, joins us next.
I'm what you might call very good at hide and seek. This one.
going on. If you're a family member, if you're a friend of the family, whatever, go out there and have yourself a fantastic Friday night because there is a blank ton of great basketball going on. Enjoy it tonight, huh? Do that. Boilermakers, Michigan State coming up tomorrow. I mentioned I'm going to Indiana State coming up on Sunday as Indiana State with a win outright will win the Missouri Valley Conference regular season crown. They get Murray State at 4 o'clock coming up on Sunday. Greg Rakestraw and I will park it over there at the Coachman in Plainfield. Shout out to the Coachman. Don't tow me. And then head over to the Holman Center at Indiana State coming up on Sunday. Cannot wait to be a part of that too. Pacers-Pelicans coming up later on tonight. That is a second of a home-and-home Wednesday night. I have mentioned it in a description as the most professional win, or maybe the most professional win of the season. At least it's up there. Just the way that the Pacers handled it. And that's a really good Western Conference team. And really, I'll give the Pelicans a lot of credit, too, because travel time and plane fiascos did not leave them a lot of time to get the noted rest. And they started out a little bit slow and then picked up the pace. They really did. But I was happy with what I saw from the Pacers, especially in the final three. Final three taken over by Halliburton. Halliburton to Siakam for maybe not 1, 2, or 3 late baskets. And Miles, battling foul trouble, had some really good final 3 minutes defensive moments, which is necessary. That is called closing a game. And closing a game against a good team. We'll see how they look down in New Orleans coming up later on tonight. Meantime, we wait until Sunday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. IU's on the road at Maryland, and joining us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline is the voice of the Hoosiers. He's friend of this show. It is Don Fischer. Hello, Don. How are you?
Good, John. How you doing, bud?
When are you leaving tomorrow?
Sometime mid-afternoon.
So you got to head down to Bloomington sometime tomorrow. You'll get there because you drive so damn fast in about 37 minutes.
Yeah, the airport takes a touch longer than that just because it's out there in the west side of the community, if you know what I mean.
They try to make you, when you go to the Monroe County Airport, they try to make you go to Greene County. They do. If you keep going down 45, you'll eventually get to Greene County.
Exactly.
So they try to get you to go out there, but the Monroe County Airport is the spot. Hey, I don't want to start talking about Tuesday night a little bit, though. That to me, we've talked about playing hard, consistently playing hard. We've talked about being focused, consistently being focused. You might have another game in mind. To me, that was the best at home against Wisconsin. That's the best we've seen out of this IU team from start to finish, especially including the fire alarm situation.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Indiana did have a 15-point lead in the first half with about a little over 6 minutes to go in the half. Kind of let that slip a little bit by halftime. It was down to 5, and then slowly Wisconsin started coming back in the second half. And by the time they got to the fire alarm problem, the game was tied at 54-all with 10 minutes and 6 seconds left. So from that point forward, though, this team hung in there. They battled. It kind of changed hands a couple of times as we went along there at the end. And yet this ball club was able to find a way to get it done, which was really good to see because we haven't seen that a lot here of late. And without question, it was a huge win for the ball club, and it got a little bit of that confidence back we've been talking about that they've been lacking.
Yeah, Don, that was a variety of situations you just mentioned. That team in the past, we had seen them wilt under circumstances like that. Even the one that is so odd because Greg Gard was upset, and really anybody that's on the other side of that, if you're on the road and that happens and you're making a run, you're going to be upset and you're going to complain about it. But I felt at the time, Don, that could equally affect IU where they are considering the lead that they gave up. But I thought in terms of punching and counter-punching, they gave IU fans all you could ask for and all you could want after that fire alarm.
No question. There's no doubt about it. And I understand why Greg would be upset. And,
yeah,
if you were in the same position, you would be too. But it's not anybody's fault other than the fact that somebody did pull the fire alarm. And for whatever reason, they had to evacuate the facility. And next thing you know, they start pouring everybody back in. It didn't last as long as I thought it was going to. I thought it was going to be probably a 25 or 30-minute type of delay, but it actually, I think, turned out to be about 15 minutes in total. And we never really went off the air. We were about ready to send it back to the studios back at Learfield to play part of the coaches' show because there wasn't anything else we could talk about at that point. And we were thinking that they were going to evacuate us as well. But that never really occurred. And by the time by the time the two teams came out to start warming up again, we had still been on the air at that juncture and didn't have to send it back to Jeff City. So it was the way it happened, though. I understand why Greg would be upset at the same time. Whether it helped Indiana or not, nobody could really know. But the good news is Indiana never stopped fighting, and the intensity level with which they played in this ball game at both ends of the floor was the best we've seen in weeks.
So is the protocol, by the way, with the evacuation of a fire alarm, are you just screwed, Don, as a broadcaster? You just got to stay in there?
Well, if there would have been a really severe issue and smoke would have been pouring out, I would have gotten up out of my chair and left myself. I would have told the boys in Jeff City to fend for themselves.
Did you exhaust all your content during that time?
Pretty much. But, I mean, the thing about it was we didn't really know why. We never heard until later on. And the reason we hadn't heard, and I didn't know this, but when a fire alarm goes off in Assembly Hall, it shuts down the PA system. And all we would hear probably every minute was the alarm going off again. And so when they started evacuating people, of course, and there were people up above who were evacuating much sooner than the people down below because you didn't hear it. You heard it up above, but you didn't hear it down below initially, and then you started hearing it down below, and obviously everybody's getting out of their seats and they're heading for the exits, which is what they're supposed to do. And I thought they did a magnificent job of getting the people out of there so fast. It was amazing and orderly. And so that's the good news from the standpoint of what took place. But the truth of the matter is they were able to get people back in there fairly quickly too. So I was proud of what the Indiana, the people, the ushers and the police and everybody that was involved in this whole thing, how they handled it.
Well, I will say this too, but so many of those ushers and those first responders, they're a part of that every single game too. And it really is a good group that rarely gets any recognition, but in a moment like that, they certainly should because, again, they've been doing that for such a long time. They're well-versed in any circumstances, and that's one that was a true curveball.
No question. It was definitely a curveball, but handled quite well by the university and by everybody that was involved. And, when we finally found out, what the deal was, they already started filing some people back in, and it just didn't take very long to get everybody back in there. And again, there's always some people who go out and, some of the elderly, that probably said, no, we're going home at this point. We're not coming back in. But most everybody came back in, and especially the students. And the one negative for the students was they could all get back in there, and the ones that were at the end of the line, which would have been probably the people in the front row, some of those people didn't get back to their same seats, so they were probably a little ticked because those students could take, it's first come, first serve for the students. So
it was a smoke alarm in the connecting hallway between Cook Hall and Assembly Hall. Is that what I heard?
I thought it was in the balcony. I was told that it was in the balcony. Yes, that's where the alarm was pulled. So I don't know if it was in the actual balcony itself or if it was just in those hallways outside the balcony.
Don, how many times have you been in the balcony there?
I've been there twice.
I've been there once, and it was like the worst experience of my life.
Well, trust me, I never saw a whole game from there. I actually snuck in the building And I was watching a practice session that I wasn't supposed to.
Wait. We got to know the background on this. So what, you snuck into the building watching a practice session you were not supposed to. Elaborate, please.
I didn't sneak into the building itself. I snuck into the balcony because the curtains were all closed, and it wasn't Indiana practice, so I wasn't trying to spy on some other team. As you know, I've said many times, I'm not a coach, and I'm not an X and O guy.
Right.
I just know what I see. So at any rate, I was just and I wanted to see this practice. I can't remember exactly what all the details of it were. This would have been 30 years ago. So.
Oh, you got that right on top of your head right there. You got it.
Yeah. So at any rate, long story short, I snuck into and watched about 5 minutes of the practice session, and nothing was happening, so I got out.
This is a true story. When I worked for, and you know this broadcasting outlet, historically, Artistic Media Partners, when I was working down there in Bloomington, they so graciously set me up in the old field house. It was like a bunch of parties and such leading up to a game, and I was in a dunk tank for Artistic Media Partners. And you know how much I was getting paid for that?
Nothing.
Yeah. So, with R.I.P. to Art Angotti, man. I mean, he was going to wiggle free of paying you a cent for anything, and that certainly was not going to be anything worthy of being compensated. And
that's hilarious because Art Angotti, and I loved Art. I mean, he was such a good guy in so many ways, but he was really chintzy.
Oh, well,
That's the nicest thing you could say. And every time we had a contract, and we had 2 contract negotiations, my first year there, I basically said, Art, if you want me to get an attorney, I will. He said, no, we don't need to do that. And finally, we got it all taken care of. I wasn't even asking for a raise. I was just asking for what I got the year before. He was trying to get me down to like $1,000 less than what I made the year before. I said, that ain't going to work.
That is not going to work. The last time I saw him was at a Pacer game, and he and Artie, and I like Artie too, his son, they walked up to me at a Pacer game, and Don, he goes, with his voice, he goes, Hey, Glyva, I hear you're making fun of me on the radio.
No, Art was a wonderful guy in so many ways, and Judy as secretary was the best ever. Loved her to death. But I spent 2 years in his offices when University Broadcasting actually had the broadcast rights for the first year. And then he allowed me to use his office space up there in his studio or up there in his offices himself. And he allowed me to have a desk up there. And Judy and I got to talk every day, and Art occasionally, because he was either gone or doing something else. So, but he was a great guy, and I really enjoyed working for him. At the same time, every negotiation that we had, it took forever to get it done.
Yeah, there's a reason why he made a lot of money in that business is because he was a shrewd negotiator, to say the least.
Yes, he was.
I will tell you this. Rick Evans, who also I think works for IMS in production, Rick Evans is a longtime friend and has worked for Artistic Media Partners, I think forever. I don't know how many years it goes back. He needs like a Golden Lifetime Achievement Award at some point. Like some big trophy made of solid gold saying, holy hell, how did you do this?
Yes, well, I guarantee you anybody that has worked that long for that organization would say exactly the same thing. And Rick Evans is one of the nicest human beings you would ever run into. I've never seen him mad. I know he gets mad occasionally, but I've never seen him mad. And he handles everything with such a plum. It's just amazing. And he does a tremendous job for the IMS, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Network and what they do all year round with their racing and all that kind of stuff. And then he does the morning shows for Artistic Media and for WHCC, which is the radio station that's our affiliate in Bloomington. He does the morning show, and I'm on his Monday morning show all during football and basketball season, like I am with you during football and basketball with your show as well. But And Rick is just spectacular, and he's done a couple of our talk shows this year too. But he had to sub in for one of our engineers that couldn't make it. So at any rate, just a wonderful person, and obviously has ran that radio station for many moons now and does a tremendous job.
He is one of the all-time greatest because he is perfect. He does everything. If you need him for anything, he can do it, and he's always been called upon in that capacity. There is nobody, you know this too, like I can do this one thing, and if it's anything technical, I'm screwed. He knows how to do everything. I mean, everything that needs to keep you on the air or keep a show going or keep a station going, and that is such an incredible high value. They have been lucky to have him all these years.
Oh, there's no question about it. And I guarantee you they know how lucky they are to have him, too, because he's done a phenomenal job in every capacity that he's had there. And I think he's had every capacity that there is to have.
Yes. Well, I was supposed to go, Joe Koppel, who works here, and I worked at B97 together. Well, and then John Callahan, who was a longtime B97 guy. They went and had breakfast at Uptown on Wednesday. I was supposed to go, but get this. So I had to go get my credential before noon to go to the Combine, and I was supposed to talk to Shane Steichen and Ian Rappaport, the reason why I was there. Steichen got sick and didn't make it, and Rappaport just basically walked out on me. So that was worth it.
What pull power you have, big boy.
Oh, it was great. Yeah, I said, he just walked right out the door. I go, hey, where are you going? So all I've done all week is cuss the Combine. That's it. I thought, I'm not going back.
I don't blame you. I'm not sure I want to see that anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, and what you're thinking is exactly right. I will say this. For fans, if you want to go, for example, later on tonight and, be a part of what they do, that is fun. Josh Downs of the Colts will be down there. That stuff is worth it. For what I do in the time in the afternoon when basically there's nobody in there, it's not worth it. So that's the difference there. For the fans, it is worth it, and I can understand why it's fun.
Sure, absolutely. But for broadcasters, not so much.
He just walked right out. And, and I go back to the days where Adam Schefter and I got into it a couple of different times at the Combine, and it hasn't done my career a great deal of good ever.
Well, there are several things that haunt all of us, if you know what I mean.
Yes. So that's certainly one of them. Hey, on the road, coming up on Sunday at 2:00 in Maryland, Hoosiers able to follow up what I thought was an impressive win over Wisconsin and maybe have a more consistent overall effort on the road in Maryland Sunday?
Well, that's what it's going to take. There's no question. Indiana's next two games are on the road at Maryland, at Minnesota. Both of those teams have been victories this year when they played them at home. But both could be defeats if they don't play up to their capability. If they play like they did against Wisconsin this past week, they will win both those ball games because they have the better team, in my opinion. But obviously, this ball club has been very inconsistent. We've talked about this ad nauseum this year. Xavier Johnson came back this last ball game, wasn't particularly effective, but I think just his presence helped. And he's always better at the defensive end, I think, than he is at the offensive end because he gives you a guy that's quick enough, athletic enough to stay with the quickest guy in their ball club, which gives you an advantage in some respects, at least at the defensive end of the floor. And he bounced back after the Nebraska game, which was back on January the 3rd, after sitting out a month and played horribly in that ball game. And the next game out against Ohio State, he played tremendous. He played his best game of the season, scored 18 points, dished out assists, didn't turn the ball over. And hopefully that's what's going to happen in this next ball game because he'll have a game under his belt now as he comes back against Maryland after the Wisconsin.
Yeah, and Ware, incredibly impressive to say the least. And we need to talk about that double-double, certainly. I thought, and he mentioned this after the game too, that guys got him the ball in comfortable positions to score. And it was a give or take there because he was scoring at a high volume and doing, what you expect him to do, but teammates were putting him in that position.
Well, he had 20 points in the first half of the ball game, and then in the second half, he kind of disappeared for a while. They didn't get the ball to him nearly as much as I thought they would. You got to ride that horse as long as he's standing up.
Right.
And obviously, the start of the second half, that's part of the reason I thought Wisconsin was able to get back in the ball game, because they just weren't getting the ball to him as much as they did in the first half. Now, some of that might have been because of Wisconsin and the defense that they were playing at that point that they got better at. But he was such a tremendous player in this contest. He had 27 points, 11 rebounds. That's his 12th double-double of the year. And, for all we heard about, how he was not the guy when he was at Oregon and all that kind of stuff, and how he didn't work hard and didn't play hard and all that kind of thing, can't say that about him this year. He has been one of their staples so far this season.
So Don Fischer, voice of the Hoosiers, you going to our table tonight?
Probably not. Not this evening, no.
All right. Hey, QC Kinetics, we doing that still?
Yeah, well, I've just done it the one time, and I've got to go back next Friday. That's my next appointment, and things are going well at this juncture. Those people have done a terrific job, I know, for a lot of different people.
Yes.
And I've had more people come up to tell me that they've experienced that, and so I'm excited about it. I really am, and the knee is still not where it needs to be, but it's getting better.
You're going to be playing golf until you're like 109.
That'd be probably. I don't think I'll be 109. That would be an astounding accomplishment, to say the least.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking right there. But no, seriously, it does work. And I, for one, I've been through everything from surgeries to taking drugs all the time, every single time you go out and play, and lengthy rehabs, and this certainly has worked. It's been an awesome for me way to get back into it without doing the stuff I'd done prior.
Absolutely. If you can avoid the knife,
yep,
that is the key aspect of getting older. Avoid the knife at all costs.
QC Kinetics right there with me and Don Fischer enjoying it, certainly to this point. All right, well, safe travels in that 26 minutes it takes to get to Bloomington and Monroe County Airport tomorrow when you get down there for that plane.
I appreciate it, John. Thanks.
We'll be listening coming up on Sunday. Thanks, Don.
You bet, bud.
Voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, and QC Kinetics customer right there. Patient, customer. Telling you what, it does work. It's worked for me. And you know me long enough. I've tried everything. And it's not like other things haven't worked either. I'm just at a point in my life where, as Don mentioned, I don't want to have to go under the knife. I think I've rotted my stomach out the way that it is with handfuls of, pain meds to do this and to do that. And you know how I'd half-ass a rehab. There's nobody that half-asses a rehab more than I do, better than I do. So this has been an incredible event for me. That's QC Kinetics. I'll probably tell you about it coming up a little bit later on before the end of the show. We do have Corbin. We do have Anything Goes coming up after 6, so be ready for that. We will get you set for a little Anything Goes on what has been a busy show so far on this Friday. It is a combine NFL-wise Friday night and a high school basketball sectional semifinal Friday night as well. More to come and a busy show to this point. AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live, and your calls and more coming up at 239-1070. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Hey, guys. Looking It's not. 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah, I saw the news regarding Reds pitcher Nick Lodolo. That's going to go, injury-wise. I did see this. Somebody had asked me because Joey Votto, the longtime future Hall of Famer and former Redleg, is out there as a free agent right now. And somebody had asked me, so do you think the Reds are going to have any interest? The Reds, I do not think at all will have any interest. That doesn't mean that other teams may have some interest for him. And I saw this, I think, from the Dan Patrick show earlier today, where Votto had mentioned he has received 10 times the offers for media analyst jobs than baseball gigs to this point. He still wants to play baseball. He still wants to sign with a team somewhere, but 10 times the amount of media requests for a gig than that of baseball. And I think we all understand that Votto is going to be awesome at doing that. Whenever he decides to fully step away, he is going to be outstanding in doing that, whenever that might be. Yeah, I saw that regarding Lodolo a little bit earlier today. As Reds fans, you just kind of wait for junk. And that's where I coined the phrase "slep rockish." I guess that would be a word, not phrase. Slep rockish for Reds fans, of which I am one. But we're getting closer and closer to the start of the Major League Baseball season, the first official day of March today, and the madness is on the way too. Regular season's winding down. I mentioned IU on the road at 2:00 and Maryland coming up. That is on Sunday. Yeah, Boilermakers in Michigan State, Mackey Arena in West Lafayette coming up tomorrow night. My Sycamores, our Sycamores, 4:00 Sunday afternoon at home. With a win over Murray State, they clinch outright the Missouri Valley Conference regular season. People also ask me all the time, so do you feel confident at an at-large bid for Indiana State if they don't win the Mo Valley Conference tournament? And I don't. And I said as much yesterday to Josh Schertz, the head coach, when he was on the show. And you know what? He says the same thing. You can't trust it. Now, for me, it's just committees in general, but you cannot trust it. And let's just face it, too. They had back-to-back games. Maybe the Southern Illinois game, certainly not as much as that Illinois State game at home. That's a stinger. Without that, I think there's more of a puncher's chance, even with that loss in Carbondale. The other thing that stood out to me yesterday, if you missed it, if you're a Sycamore fan, and if you're not, you better be. Better jump on the bandwagon right now because we are ready to load everybody up. When he was talking about Isaiah Swope and the leg injury and what he's going through to prepare. He mentioned yesterday they've modified his practice schedule so he is ready for games. And that's what's tough. He was so good prior to that injury, so good. And then now he's dealing with that, and you can't and you don't feel like you felt when things were going so right. You're just talking about it from a production standpoint is one thing, but from a mental standpoint, I mentioned to Josh yesterday, that would prey on your mind. It'd be much tougher to have to deal with that and approach the game a little bit differently. Knowing that maybe you can't get around that corner as easily as you did earlier this year. You can't off the dribble get there as quicker. And, you talk about modifying the practice schedule. You kind of got to modify your game, and that's been a reason. You look at, how his numbers have gone since that point in time, where surgery is inevitable coming up after the season. But, man, so much is on the line right now. and he is going to tough that thing out. It's one thing, too, to say you're going to play through it and tough it out, and that is always admirable. But it's the other thing to go out and do that and then be called upon for those similar productive situations that, because of the injury, just simply may not be reasonable any longer. Makes it tough, and then everybody else kind of has to step up in the capacity. And you've seen Indiana State, it's not like they go deep into the bench. So, as I have said, win it to be in it. This is what I'm looking for right there. Indiana State, 4 o'clock coming up on Sunday. We'll look for you over there at the Holman Center with a win, and they will win it outright. The Missouri Valley Conference, and it has been a fantastic season. It's been a great season for them, for that program, for the school, and it's been really cool to see everybody in and around Terre Haute. Indiana State fans around here get all jacked up about the basketball program. It is good to see. And it also comes in a season where, when you think about it, IU, even with that win on Tuesday, they're down. The feeling's down there. Butler, obviously, since that Creighton win, they've circled the drain. Likely without Indiana State's presence or somebody running the table in a conference tournament here, the state of Indiana is going to be repped by one team, and that's Purdue. So it is a season, if you're Indiana State, to have, or I should say the year to have this type of season. Without question. But interesting stuff there. Tyler writes this, JMV, thoughts on what it would look like if the Colts wanted to trade up for Marvin Harrison Jr.? It's funny, Tyler, I asked that of Mike Chappell, and it was kind of in jest yesterday because I know that they don't have the inclination to try to do that. I don't even think as far as the price tag, I had said yesterday, Tyler, that they would actually, at 15, they would have to make, I think, a precursor type of deal to get further up in round number 1, and then after that, cobble something together if they wanted to try to get Harrison. So that is like stratospherically far away from any of the thought process Chris Ballard would have. Now, I've been the first to tell you around here that his thought process should be adjusted. I just don't think it is going to adjust at all in that fashion, and that's why we haven't brought it up very much. In general, it doesn't make a lot of sense if they would try to do it, but then if you look at what it would actually take, and then you look who's the final decision, then it really doesn't make any sense. That's why early today, I hope there are red flags. Red flags all over it. Hey, I saw a guy from The Athletic say, well, you know what, with something like this, there's no way in the top 8 that I would draft Marvin Harrison Jr. And I was like, good. Good for you. That would not affect me in the least. That guy catches everything. And we get to a time of year now at the combine and then moving up to the draft where everybody else around him starts to be as good, described as good. And I'm sorry, head and shoulders. And I feel good about this. I was right about C.J. Stroud a year ago, and I'm going to be right about Marvin Harrison Jr. The impact that you can have early and often resides with him. And I mean impact. So, yeah, red flag that. As far as you can down the road. I can't believe he's not going to be in the top 8. Can you imagine? But again, if you're a Colts fan, yeah, the further down you go, maybe that does spark an interest. If that's the case, I just can't imagine these guys that are all the smartest guys in every single football room. Some point, you get away from the analytics and all that crap, and you just go to what you have seen, and that's really all you have to do with him. Your eyes tell you all you need to know. Quick break and we'll come back. Anything goes, top of the hour. More me, more of you inside the AAA Membership Lounge. That is via YouTube Live on a Friday. Again, anything goes, top of the hour. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Where are my basketballs?
Buy you guys a drink? Guess not.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Corbin's over there. My name is John. Thank you. Top of the hour, we go to Anything Goes for about 20 minutes, so prepare for that. This not in the realm of sports right here, but anybody see the rescue video of the semi-tractor trailer that went over the edge of the bridge? I believe the 2nd Street Bridge. I think they call it the Clark Bridge. I'd have to ask Swebo exactly, since he would know, although he's in northern Kentucky, the side of the Ohio River where you have to swim across to actually get back into the state. But a semi-tractor trailer went over the side of that bridge, and the cab was just like dangling, maybe 100 or so feet above the Ohio River. And there is drone footage of a rescue operation. This happened earlier today. Again, down at the Indiana-Kentucky line over the Ohio River, of the rescue effort of the first responders, and it is absolutely incredible stuff. So if anybody deserves a shout-out today to pull the woman, the driver of that truck, out of the cab and then get her to safety, all caught on camera, it's incredible stuff. And there's never a time when you cross a bridge of that magnitude where you don't think, hey, I can't imagine. But first responders today out of Louisville, that's incredible. Absolutely incredible. So if you haven't seen that, give that a watch, give that a look at some point. It is something. And a lifesaver it was. For real. Just that, the truck dangling there, it's just incredible. Really, describing it as compelling doesn't do it justice. BT writes this: injuries already started for the Reds. I'm afraid Votto is done. Yeah, I saw that with Lodolo a little bit earlier. Yeah, hopefully this can be different. There is a talented team, as talented as anybody in the Central, going in. It does not surprise me that Votto got a lot more offers as far as being a part of the media than anything else. Because once he decides to go that direction, it is going to be pretty darn good. Hey, JMV, considering that Caitlin Clark is basically the Taylor Swift of women's sports, once she gets drafted by the Fever, every business in the state that wants or needs national exposure should be offering her deals. Good for the state and good for her. And no doubt that is big news as of yesterday. And we talked about yesterday on the show. Incredible stuff. And now you see the Fever trying to take advantage. They are sending out links to season tickets like crazy. They're doing so far what you need to do in that situation. No question about it. Pacers, Pelicans coming up later on tonight. 7:30 pregame show right here. That's an 8 o'clock start from New Orleans. Back on Wednesday night, Pacers get the win over the Pelicans. We'll see if they can make it 2 in a row. San Antonio on Sunday in San Antonio. If you saw Wembayama last night, had a huge game and a win. I think cussed in front of everybody on TV and in front of everybody in San Antonio last night, and had a great response saying, I'm just not used to the standards here. The standards are different, evidently, in France. But an incredible game for him last night against Oklahoma City. I believe they go New Orleans tonight. You get San Antonio Sunday, and then Dallas again next week, and then they come back on Thursday. And, oh, by the way, get the best in the West right now, and the Minnesota Timberwolves at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. So when people say that the back half of this, after the All-Star break, is easy, I mentioned this to Mike Wells a little bit earlier. You manage where you are because this is a tough stretch. They still have to go out west again with the Lakers, with who else? With the Clippers out west again. You still got to go out west again. But the final 8, you look at the final 8 and you hope that the Pacers put themselves into position to really make that matter. Because that final 8, as I mentioned, starting with the Lakers at home, I think that's on March the 29th, that's when you can really put something together down the stretch to hopefully separate yourself from everybody else in and around you in the Eastern Conference and get out of that play-in scenario. Now look at the final 8, but you have to navigate well those games prior. You got a home and home still with OKC. Clippers, as I mentioned. You got some tough ones still to come. That final 8 would be manageable. More on that, too. We got some Anything Goes coming up at the top of the hour. Until about 20 after we go, we'll get you to the last word with the Gorman and Matt Taylor. I'm assuming having a great deal of stuff from Radio Row at the Combine. 20 minutes of Anything Goes on a Friday. Do not go anywhere. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Query and Company.
I want you to be nice.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, let's do some anything goes here for about 20 minutes. You guys ready for it? Corbin's over there. We'll take your calls at 239-1070. We talk about whatever you want to talk about. I also should mention, too, Butler tomorrow. I think that's a noon start. Make sure I'm accurate about that. Yeah, noon tomorrow on the road against DePaul. They close out the regular season in the Big East, which, by the way, recently has been disappointing. They lost 6 of 7. I go all the way back when they were on the road at Creighton and got that 99-98 win, and you were going to obviously go to UConn. That was going to be difficult. It proved out to be, but they didn't play all that bad. Then you come back home and you beat Providence, but since that point in time, again, there's nothing at all easy about playing at home against Marquette, playing at home against Creighton. Marquette, they were close. Creighton, they were not, and really, when you look at it, massive disappointment since that point in time. Marquette, Creighton, Villanova, Seton Hall, and then St. John's. Ugh. Game the other night was all. So they were on the other side of the bubble. They put themselves on the bubble and then went well past below the bubble to where there's no chance. That is major league disappointing right there. Noon tomorrow against DePaul. That is the Butler Bulldogs in the Big East. All right, little anything goes for you. About 20 or so minutes on the clock at 239-1070. I'm going to handle this over here. You just handle the up and down of it over there, Corbin. My guy Fulton talking JMV takeover to lead. Hello, Fulton.
JMV, how are you?
My buddy, I'm great. How are you?
Great. I've got some big news for you.
Big news from Fulton, everybody. Go ahead.
So I am in the top 20 in the karaoke knockout singing competition.
Well, I knew that you would be. What are you singing?
Wagon Wheel by Deus Vaco.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yep.
Wagon Wheel. That's a good. I bet you make that your own, don't you, Fulton? I love it.
Yes, I do. I'm actually going to be in the talent show this summer.
Yes.
At the Cicero, behind the Cicero Library, and we were wondering if you'd like to come to that.
Well, you remind me as we get closer, and I would love to come back up to you. You're going to perform Wagon Wheel at that too?
I will, with my ukulele and singing.
I got to see that. I got to see it. That's awesome. Fulton,
yep.
Congratulations. You keep on keeping on, my friend.
I sure will, and make sure you vote for me. I sent you the email, so.
You got it. I'm voting. You're the only one I'm voting for, Fulton.
Thank you.
You got it. But that's Fulton right there on Anything Goes. Wagon Wheel. Did you say he's going to bring his ukulele? I got to be there for that. Gary's up next on Anything Goes at 239-1070. Gary, welcome to the show.
Yeah. Hey, John, thanks for covering the Sycamores.
Yes.
Kind of like what you said. If you don't do it, nobody else will.
Exactly. I've got to hold up the honor of Terradice and Indiana State University.
That's right. Well, you got Kevin and Swebo talking about him, and Jake, and they have their entire starting 5 coming back next year.
Well, and, we'll see about that.
Because of NIL, and I know. Yeah, I know. There was already something mentioned about Robbie. Robbie's got a good deal over there.
Well, I will say this. I mean, that would have been a second time for Conwell, South Florida. It would be a second time for Swope. The different set of circumstances, I guess, for that. So, maybe that. But, Robbie's going to be an issue. I would have you know what? Let me rephrase. An issue is the wrong way to put it. There are going to be teams coming at him a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, one other thing. Every year I think a lot of us at major schools, like you and I both went to state, they always get screwed in the NCAA. They always take a 6th, 7th Big Ten team, Big East, and sometimes even more than that, 8 or 9 teams, and then they leave out like somebody that was conference champion but lost out in the tournament. But can you imagine being a mid-major coach and only being guaranteed one opportunity to get in the NCAA? I mean, it'd be a lot easier to be in the Big Ten and get 7th or 8th place.
Well, and listen, some would say yes, Gary. Others would suggest, I mean, think, for example, like with IU and Mike Woodson. You are a high-level legacy, and you probably have 90% of the fan base 100% against you right now because of your results. It is a different set of circumstances altogether. But as far as, doing what Indiana State is doing and knowing in the past they have been in this position so few times, and I know, Gary, if you're like me, your concern is how this thing is going to end, because you don't want to see it end badly here. And there are just a lot more opportunities for these mid-majors in a season like Indiana State, where, you go through this great season and everybody is happy, and, then something unforeseen happens, you get upset, and that's all anybody remembers. And that's what is mostly unfortunate for these schools.
Belmont is the team that scares me the most right now. They got back their leading scorer from last year. I think they've only lost one game since he's been back, and them and the Sycamores have had some battles last couple of years too. Well, hey, thank you so much for covering State. I really appreciate it.
Gary,
a lot of us do.
You got it. Thank you, Gary. I love my Sycamores. Love them. I love Terre Haute. I love Vigo County. I'd go back today if I could, especially that part with no responsibilities. I would definitely do that. Anybody else would have joined me? I would love to. I'm not gonna, but it'd be great to go back where you had, like in 1992, I had no responsibilities. Get your ass up and go to class. That was it. No, I'd go back to that life in a second. What concerns me regarding Indiana State is not even so much, Belmont or, an early round exit or Drake or Bradley. It's not even so much the team. It's when I was talking to Josh Schertz yesterday, I didn't realize that Swope was as banged up as he is. And he has been such an essential piece, such an essential productive piece, that it is hard for them to make up, if he is struggling in the game. And then you look at what he's trying to go through right now with his injury situation, where Josh said yesterday that they modified his practice schedule where he's practicing like once a week now. And that, anything, I mentioned this before, their defense is not nearly good enough to make up for them losing any of their offense. And that's what concerns me more than anything. And he talked about yesterday how they're trying to get him ready for games, how he's preparing himself for these games. When you're banged up and you have been an essential piece to what has been a fantastic season, and you don't feel all of yourself any longer, you feel less than, man, that stinks. That stinks for you physically, and that certainly stinks for you mentally. That is more of my concern than really anybody that they're going to play in the Mo Valley. Now, that's a product of a team they're going to play and how a team can take advantage of that, lesser or greater than. But that's what bums me out more than anything right now. And that was, I think, even more solidified in the conversation we had with Josh Schertz yesterday. If you missed it, the head coach of Indiana State podcast, 1075thefan.com. Still up via the AAA membership lounge, via YouTube Live, if you guys want to jump in there as well. And Kent is next. Hello, Kent. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Kent. Hey, listen, I thoroughly agree with you. That was compelling today. I was watching that live with the Clark Street Bridge.
It was like a movie, except
yes,
this was real stinking life today.
Yes, it was. It was just particularly to see him pluck them out of there and get them up there to the bridge deck and stuff.
Yes, exactly. Completely agree with you.
And now my other thing, and I run camera and stuff like that, and the games. And I did the Butler game the other night, and I was thinking about you because after the game, everybody was out on the court shooting free throws and stuff like that.
I know it.
And they do the same thing down at IU too.
I know it. I am a dying breed with that.
Well,
and
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I have, but this is not, Kent, anything new with me. I have always, and if I was at New Augusta last night, which is in Pike Township, and my daughter's team was playing, and I watched, and I don't get on the floor with my shoes on. I don't do it. I walk around. Everybody else cuts through, and I know that everybody's been on that floor with shoes and boots and heels and everything. It's just never going to be me. I always walk around, and that's always been kind of the way I deal with it. It does drive me nuts when others don't.
You know what? Well, I'm way older than you, and I remember back when you had sock hops, because when you were on the gym floor, you took your shoes off.
I know it. I was a part of a group. We had a dance once when I was younger at Eastern, and I made them put a tarp down because it drove me nuts. It absolutely drove me nuts when I was younger.
I do remember the high school that would have been the high school I would have gone to in McCordsville, except they tore it down when they consolidated. But I do remember the court actually had a canvas tarp that they put down for events like, where they needed the gym floor and stuff.
Yes.
So
I
hear you.
And I always said, that's why you built this multi-purpose room cafeteria here. You can utilize that for dances and stuff. We don't need to be in the gym.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, that was the only big place we had.
Yeah, but hey, Ken, I've been right with you. That has bugged me for years, and it bugs me to this day.
Yep. Well, thanks, man.
You got it, Ken. Thank you very much. No street shoes on the gym floor. Now, Kent and I cannot be the only people out there that live by that, and I practiced that last night. I gave all the respect in the world to those that will play on the floor at New Augusta Middle School. And I'm not walking on your floor. I'll walk the sidelines. Won't do it. Well, you'd see all of our parents and everybody just traipsing right across. Come on now. But it happens everywhere. And I know what you're going to say. Well, they also use that for PE, and you're absolutely right. That doesn't mean it still doesn't drive me insane. It just always has. I probably should, in terms of things that bug me, if this is on top of my list, I think I'm okay. But it's certainly on top of my list. JR's next on Anything Goes. Hello, JR.
Hey, JMV. How you doing, buddy?
Outstanding. What's up, buddy?
Hey, a few things. Yeah, the gym, the floor on the gym shoes, that's like stepping on the chalk lines of baseball, man. You just don't do it.
Exactly. There are some things you respect, and those are two things. Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, one thing, were you able to go to that Toto concert in Brown County last
You
week?
believe I didn't? I was – here's why. I've got a good excuse. I was down in GC, and if anybody wants a puppy, my mom has some dog rolled up on her property and dropped a litter of 7 on her property. And, of course, my mom brings them all. Oh, we got to do something with them. So there's a bunch of – I had to go down there and try to figure that out. And I was on my way back, and I called Christian Webb. Actually, he had called me and said, hey, you coming tonight? And I got home, and I couldn't make it down. So I missed something really good, didn't I?
Yeah, my buddies tease me a lot. I'm a big fan. I've seen him 8 or 9 times. I was center stage, second row up. I had my 15-year-old son. It was a great show. Great show. Maybe next time around.
I don't think people realize Steve Lukather and the level of talent and what he has provided over decades. Being a part of writing songs, producing songs, or with Toto, that you may not completely know the impact he's had on popular music for decades. It's incredible.
Oh, absolutely. And those guys belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but we know the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame time's a joke. And lastly, hey, no Slep Rock this year. Put $22 on the Red Legs, win the World Series, and you'll win $1,000. So let's go.
I'm there with you. I'm ready for it. I don't want it to be just June. Like they always give us seemingly a month of, hey, let's have some fun. It's got to be more than just June this year.
I agree. I heard Joey Votto today on Dan Patrick's show. I'm kind of bummed. It sounds like he's not going to catch on with anybody, so I'm kind of bummed about that. But have a good weekend, JMV.
Yeah, JR, thank you very much. And a shout-out to Christian Webb and the Brown County Music Center. If you guys not seen a show there before, it is incredible. What a great venue to sit back and relax. And that was on Sunday, and I was all ready to go, and I didn't get home until late. And I think I did something with Hagen in 59 and didn't get down there. So that stunk. But Toto is outstanding. And by the way, too, if Jimi Hendrix is listening right now, I got to look this up. But Adam Ann and English Beat, they're coming to the Murat Egyptian Room. And I've seen English Beat I've seen before. English Beat is great because they've got great English Beat songs that like, Save It for Later, Mirror in the Bathroom. They got songs like that. But they also, they were a part of General Public, if you remember that, of the song Tenderness, noted for being in 16 Candles, just a great popular music sound, back in 1984. But they got a catalog of great songs. I've never seen Adamant, so. Jimmy, if you're rolling around and listening, I got to get there. I think that's on a Tuesday or something, too, that I can make. It's Adam Ann and English Beat. That is a great back-to-back 80s recall show at the Egyptian Room coming up later on this month. Mike's up next on Anything Goes at 239-1070. Hello, Mike.
Hey, John, my favorite announcer, buddy.
Oh, Mike, that is awesome. Thank you very much.
Holding down. Hey, you know what? You know my history, 30 years as a firefighter. Those guys down and gals down in Louisville, that is not easy. That is very, very eccentric timing, and shout out to them. But
yeah, they rappelled from the bridge to get to the cab of the truck. It looks like it almost looked like they did they remove the windshield?
I couldn't tell, but I could only tell you the size of diaper I would have needed to be in that cab. But they hooked a pulley system, and what the deal is, you have to lower down and then change over to a raising system off the tip of that ladder truck. So, but shout out to them. But I want to get into something. I heard something this morning. I'm going to steal something from Swebo. It's a sports arousal right now here in Indianapolis. Think about it. Anthony Richardson, Tyrese Halliburton, Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark. Name a city that is better right now with young professionals, soon to be excellent, that you can name. There's none. If you're not excited now, something's wrong.
Well,
and by the way, let me finish real quick, and I'll hang up because I know you got times. But the trees are going to do it. And if you got an extra seat on Sunday between you and Greg, I'd love to go out to Holman Center and see that, because that's one place I've never been to, and I want to go.
I don't know exactly. I don't know if I'm going with a media credential or I've got to ask Greg that. Greg's been so busy, I haven't got a hold of him.
Well, give me a bag. I'll carry it. You say, hey, this is my dude.
I don't know. Yeah, but I don't know exactly how we're going just yet. I just know that we're going. So,
hey, by the way, I've got a heart scan on Wednesday, and thank you for the information. I'm looking forward to it.
Are you going to Meridian Medical Services?
Yes.
Awesome, man. That's great. Hey, and tell us all how it goes. I went through something that was so impactful last week that it really left a mark on me to want to tell everybody else, because it's something that I put off and put back. And it's so easy to go to Meridian Medical Services, and I'm so glad I did last week, and I'm glad you are too.
Yeah, I'll let you know the results, but I appreciate the info on that.
You got it. Thank you, Mike.
All right, see ya.
That's Mike right there. Yeah, that rescue today, if you didn't see it, a semi-tractor trailer went over the Clark Bridge. That's the 2nd Street Bridge over the Ohio River between southern Indiana, Jeffersonville, and Louisville, and first responders had to rescue the woman that was driving the truck out of the cab of the semi that was hanging over the bridge. Incredible. I got to go. Give me 10 seconds or less to close, Ryan.
Shout out to the state champion, Suburban Christian Crusaders, who got the job done last Saturday, baby. Go Crusaders! Woo!
Ryan closing it out strong. Great job today, Corbin. Corbin's been a part of the show today as the producer and for James. Bob Lovell Kyle Nedenrip, Mike Wells, Jake Query, Don Fischer. Podcast with each, 1075thefan.com. The last word with the Gorman and Matt Taylor from Radio Row at the NFL Combine is next. JMV Takeover. That is tomorrow night, 6 until midnight on B105.7. I'll talk to you then. See you on Sunday at the Holman Center in Paradise for Indiana State Hoopage at 4 o'clock. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Housing discrimination because of race, color, or national origin is against the law. If you believe you've experienced housing discrimination,